Chapter 4700. Gu Qinglian also sighed a little. He had taken a fancy to Xiao Bai, but now that he saw Xiao Bai and Kong Xinmu together, it was obvious that she had a different feeling for Kong Xinmu. Both of them came from the Dragon Martial continent, so it was very likely that they had feelings for each other. Gu Qinglian could only give up. Fortunately, this guy didn't have much perseverance in anything, whether it was in cultivation or in relationships. He would soon forget about this matter. The key was that he couldn't go to the supreme relic that the Gu family had discovered. There were only 4 members of the Gu family's younger generation who matched their age. In addition, the Gu family had selected 6 young guards from the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor to escort the 4 juniors. Including Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai, there were a total of 12 people. After Jiang Xinwu and Xiao Bai arrived, everyone would definitely hold a welcoming dinner for them. Then, they would make arrangements to entertain them and have dinner together. It just so happened that the Gu family's banquet was of a high standard. Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai were very lucky. This was the best dinner they had ever had since they came to the Dragon God's world. After the banquet, it was time to talk business. Even someone like Yu Zhanfeng couldn't participate in this matter. After all, it was an internal matter of the Gu family. So, Yu Zhanfeng and the other guests had already left. Originally, Yu Zhanfeng wanted to invite Gu Xinyue to walk around the city and buy her some gifts. However, Gu Xinyue chose to stay and prepare for the next matter, so she didn't go out with him. This made Yu Zhanfeng a little unhappy. Of course, he knew that Gu Xinyue stayed because of Kong Xinmu. She wanted to discuss the details of going to the Supreme Relic with Kong Xinmu. Although it was a serious matter, Yu Zhanfeng was still a little unhappy that his invitation had failed. So, he had more opinions about Kong Xinmu. Naturally, Kong Xinmu was unaware of all this. He and Xiao Bai were on their way to meet up with their teammates. There were 4 juniors in the Gu family, 2 males and 2 females. Other than that, there were 6 guards accompanying him. These 6 guards were the younger generation of the Gu family's retainers. Each of them was a very talented young dragon warrior. None of them were over 30 years old, but they had already reached the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor. As retainers of the Gu clan, they naturally had to protect the safety of the younger generation of the Gu clan. They could be considered to be a great force in the Supreme Ruins. Of course, it was hard to say what choice they would make in a life-and-death situation. Anyway, these henchmen basically obeyed the master of the Gu family. Even Gu Xinyue couldn't command them. Because of the power of the master of the Gu family, these henchmen gathered together and huddled together. Basically, most of them were involved in interests. As for how they would behave in a life-and-death situation, no one knew. Because of this, Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai played a very important role in this trip. Their strength was a part of it, and the key was that with them around, the descendants and guards of the henchmen wouldn't forget their principles at the sight of profit and attack the younger generation of the Gu family in the Supreme Ruins. One had to know that the Supreme Ruins was full of danger. In a situation where outsiders couldn't spy on them, no one knew what they would do. When the time came, they would directly take out the treasure and trap the younger generation of the Gu family inside. Now that Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai were here, they were strong and talented. Secondly, they could be said to be absolutely neutral, which could prevent internal strife from happening. 4 juniors of the Gu family, 2 males and 2 females. 6 retainers, 4 males and 2 females. Among them, the men were all graceful and talented. Of course, compared to Gu Xinyue, there was still a gap. As for the 4 females, they seemed to have a good relationship with each other. Compared to the men, their talents were slightly inferior, but not by much. If they were to fight, no one knew their real combat strength. These juniors basically hadn't experienced life-and-death situations. Gu Xinyue personally introduced the names and identities of these 10 people to Kong Xinmu. Of course, she paid more attention to the younger generation of the Gu family. They were all her cousins. As for the 6 retainers, she introduced them a little perfunctorily. Perhaps they weren't too important to her. This made the 6 retainers a little unhappy. Of course, they were already used to this situation, so they didn't care too much. But they were a little surprised by the arrival of Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai. This time, the Gu family actually let outsiders participate in the exploration of the Supreme Relic. Moreover, they only took a small part of the personal gains of Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai, instead of giving them a small part. This showed how much the Gu family valued Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai. Kong Xinmu had no interest in the high-level game in the Five Extremes mysterious Ice City. He only cared about how many good things he could obtain in the Supreme Relic. It would be good if there were strategic things. Kong Xinmu still hoped that he could help with the difficult situation that the Dragon God's great world was facing. He needed a relatively peaceful and stable environment to improve himself. If everything became chaotic, the environment for his improvement would also become worse. Although he could consider going to the Demon God clan, he didn't want to make such a decision unless he had no other choice. Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai were together. After being introduced by Gu Xinyue, he got to know the 10 retainers of the Gu family who were about to set off together. Then, Gu Qinglian suddenly pulled Kong Xinmu to the side and whispered to Kong Xinmu, "By the way, Brother Jiang, please take care of Xueqi. I watched her grow up. She's like a younger sister to me." Xueqi was one of the guards of the 6 retainers. She could be considered a beauty. Gu Qinglian seemed to have a special liking for her. He didn't know if it was because she looked like his younger sister. "Yes, I will try my best." Kong Xinmu nodded and glanced at Xueqi. Xueqi's face was very beautiful and looked very pure. She was also the youngest among those present. However, her talent was not bad. She was already at the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor and was a 3rd-class disciple of the Five Extremes mysterious Ice Holy Land. 3rd-class disciples were generally dragon warriors from the 5th to 6th levels of the Dragon Emperor. To be able to become a 3rd-class disciple at the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor, Xueqi's combat strength was not weak. The other 5 guards were all 2nd-class disciples. In terms of combat strength, they were not as good as Xueqi. There were even 4 retainers of the Gu family who were only 2nd-class disciples. It was extremely rare to become a 3rd-class disciple at the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor. Chapter 4701. Kong Xinmu paid a little more attention to Xueqi, but he didn't care too much about it. Xueqi could be relied on at a critical moment. As for the others, their battle prowess was too low. The Holy Tower of Pentapec's mysterious ice had just opened. If they had the strength to become 3rd-class disciples, they wouldn't have remained 2nd-class disciples. Hence, their battle prowess was indeed slightly lower. Xiao Bai was currently a 3rd-class disciple, while Kong Xinmu was a 5th-class disciple. It could be seen that these 2 external helpers had absolute strength in the team. Of course, the 10 juniors from the Gu family might not think highly of Xiao Bai. They didn't even think highly of Kong Xinmu. In their opinion, Kong Xinmu's status as a 5th-class disciple was definitely not that high. As for his status as a personal disciple of Emperor Shi, wasn't it because Emperor Shi had a close relationship with the Martial Dragon Continent? It wasn't easy for a genius to appear in the Martial Dragon Continent, so Emperor Shi naturally had to take care of him. Just like Yu Yaji, he was also a personal disciple of Emperor Shi. As for what these people were thinking, Kong Xinmu didn't care at all. He and Xiao Bai only got to know these people a little before they decided to leave and rest first. They would set off early the next morning. He didn't expect that Xueqi would chase him out of the side hall and arrive in front of Jiang Shunwu. She smiled sweetly and said, "Senior brother Jiang, you are now a 5th-class disciple of our 5 extreme dark ice holy land. You must be extremely strong. When we reach the Supreme Relic, we will listen to all your instructions. If you have any errands for us, please don't stand on ceremony." "Yes, I will." Jiang Shunwu nodded, but he was a little surprised in his heart. Xueqi seemed to be very sensible. After saying that, Kong Xinmu had a much better impression of her. Then senior brother Jiang and senior sister Qi should rest well. I hope you can get used to living in our Gu family. Xueqi bowed politely to Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai. Kong Xinmu looked at her curvaceous figure and the sweet smile on her face. His mood became a little better. He nodded and left with Xiao Bai. After he left, there was a small incident. Gu Qinglian was responsible for leading Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai to their residence. Along the way they talked about something. Soon, they arrived at a guest courtyard and were given a courtyard. "Don't tell me this courtyard only has 1 bedroom?" Xiao Bai only took a glance at the courtyard entrance before asking suspiciously. "Yes, just 1. Do the 2 of you need to separate?" Gu Qinglian was a little careless. Like the others, he had already regarded Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai as a couple. So Xiao Bai rolled her eyes at him. "We will live separately." Only then did Gu Qinglian react. Oh, okay, then Miss Xiaobai can stay in this courtyard. Brother Jiang can follow me to the next room. Thank you. Kong Xinmu nodded with a smile and followed her. Xiaobai didn't say anything more. After entering the courtyard, she went back to her room to rest. As Kong Xinmu and Gu Qinglian walked along the way, Gu Qinglian leaned close to his ear and asked sneakily, Brother Jiang, you didn't sleep with her? What a waste. Take advantage of this opportunity to make a move, or it will be too late. Brother Gu, you misunderstood. Kong Xinmu shook his head and said helplessly, Xiaobai and I are just friends. But we are closer than ordinary friends. Since we are closer than ordinary friends, why don't we be more intimate? Isn't it more convenient to travel outside? It will also prevent others from always having ideas about her. If we knew that she was already taken, many people would definitely shrink back at the sight of her. Gu Qinglian shook his head and sighed. As the young master of the Gu family, Kong Xinmu couldn't understand what he was thinking. So Kong Xinmu could only say vaguely, I already have someone I like, so I can't do anything that will let her down. Sigh. We dragon martial artists are ambitious. How can we be bound by a woman? Besides, it's a beautiful woman, the more the better. Only then did Gu Qinglian open her mouth and talk about her point of view incessantly. Unfortunately, this didn't work on Kong Xinmu. Jiang Xinwu's father was still imprisoned in the dragon ceiling abyss. If he coveted to enjoy himself at this moment and fought for more and more women, then without a doubt, his cultivation would absolutely fall because of this. With his current identity, strength and status, it was extremely easy for him to obtain women, and it was even to the extent that he could obtain the favor of many genius young women and peerless beauties. However, it would definitely distract Kong Xinmu and he wouldn't be able to focus on cultivation wholeheartedly. It would have a huge impact on his future achievements. Generally speaking, the stronger a dragon martial artist's cultivation, the closer their life essence was to that of a divine dragon, so their lifespan would be longer. So generally speaking, dragon martial artists would rarely marry and have children when their strength was rising. Basically, they would consider marrying and having children after reaching a bottleneck, and then develop their family's influence. For example, the head of the Gu family had reached a bottleneck 50 years ago and was stuck at the 5th level of the super divine dragon. That was why he established the Gu family and developed the Gu family to its current scale. In the entire 5 Extremes Mysterious Eye City, it was one of the top big families. As for the head of the Gu family, although he had been cultivating non-stop for the past 50 years, because he had reached a bottleneck, he could only reach the 7th level of the super divine dragon after such a long time. He had been promoted from a 7th class disciple to an 8th class disciple. This was almost the limit. To become a supreme divine dragon. It was either a coincidence that it happened 100 years later, or there was no hope for it in this lifetime. This was the current situation of the dragon god's world. Gu Qinglian was also included. He was considered a playboy and had met many beautiful women. He had also had many good ones. However, before he reached a bottleneck, he didn't spend too much time on anyone. That's right, Gu Qinglian had reached a bottleneck and it was difficult for him to improve. But he hadn't reached the level of the super divine dragon yet. So, his mentality was already different from ordinary dragon martial artists. When Jiang Xinwu heard this, he was speechless. This Gu Qinglian was really a weirdo. She was probably already thinking of getting married and having children, and starting a family of her own. Anyway, Kong Xinmu didn't have such thoughts at the moment. He couldn't help but think of the little princess of the demon god clan, Xueqi. Thinking back, that feeling was indeed wonderful. But Kong Xinmu was very clear that this kind of enjoyment brought more responsibility. She was the little princess of the demon god clan. Since he had done something, he definitely had to take responsibility. The burden on his shoulders was heavy. Chapter 4702. Early the next morning, Kong Xinmu woke up and saw Xiaobai standing guard at the entrance of his courtyard. Good morning, Brother Jiang. Xiaobai greeted Kong Xinmu as her eyes lit up. Beside her was Gu Xinyue. Gu Xinyue had a slender figure as she stood at the entrance. When she saw Kong Xinmu, she smiled. Junior Brother Jiang, did you rest well last night? Not bad. The Gu family has a good environment. Kong Xinmu smiled and nodded. This was the truth. The Gu family's environment was very comfortable. The heaven and earth spirit qi was abundant, and even the dragon mark energy was abundant. It was no wonder that they could become a big family in the Holy Land of Five Extremes Black Ice. It was said that the spirit gathering array was obtained from the Holy Land of Five Extremes Black Ice, and it cost the Gu family a lot of Holy Land contribution points. Developing a family required a lot of cultivation resources. Without the Holy Land of Five Extremes Black Ice, the Gu family's family head would not have been able to do it. Even so, the Gu family's family head had made corresponding contributions to the Holy Land of Five Extremes Black Ice. It was hard to imagine how much effort he had put in. Right now, the Gu family could be said to be flourishing. They had more than 10 important family servants, and they were all powerful existences of the 6th-tier disciples of the Five Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. They had yet to form a family power, but their population was also constantly increasing. It was hard to say when one of the family servants would run out and establish their own family. A 6th-class disciple in the Holy Land of Five Extremes Black Ice was at the level of a super mystical dragon. Because of this, Gu Xinyue becoming a 6th-class disciple was very important to the Gu family. Look at the younger generation of the Gu family. There are already 6th-class disciples. If you retainers follow the Gu family, won't you be even more successful in the future? Although Gu Xinyue had not broken through to become a super mystical dragon, she had finally reached the peak of the 9th stage of the rebirth realm. Moreover, every time she broke through, she would condense the power of rebirth. This also resulted in her current combat power being extremely strong. Of course, she had barely managed to reach 60 points in the 6th level of the Holy Tower. However, this was enough to prove her battle prowess. She was able to put up a fight against the Super Shenron. That was the most important thing. As for the other henchmen, the strongest one was only a level 3 super mystical dragon. In the future, Gu Xinyue would definitely catch up to him. It was an honor for Kong Xinmu to be welcomed by the two beauties, Gu Xinyue and Qi Xiaobai. He nodded at them as a greeting and followed them to the front hall of the Gu family. In the front hall, the 10 people who were going to set off this time were all ready. They were mainly led by Gu Xinyue and headed to the Chaos Battlefield. The dragon gods had many strongholds in the Chaos Battlefield. Each stronghold was basically fought over by several holy lands and guarded by several holy lands. However, the current environment of the dragon gods' great world had caused many strongholds of the dragon gods to be abandoned. It was not that they did not want to guard them, but that no one was guarding them. Some of the less important strongholds had been abandoned. After these days of understanding, Kong Xinmu had learned a lot about the Chaos Battlefield. The Chaos Battlefield was an extremely vast and incomparably vast world. Some fierce battles seem to have taken place on this battlefield in ancient times, causing it to be deserted. Of course, now it had regained its vitality. Green filled the Chaos Battlefield. However, the truly deserted and valuable place was under the Chaos Battlefield. The underground of the Chaos Battlefield was divided into 10 different levels. The area closest to the surface was the first underground level. This was the most basic area. The supreme relics in it had basically been explored by people. A total of tens of thousands of supreme relics had been excavated, and now they had all been completely explored. This was the first level area. At this stage, there was basically no value in exploring it. Moreover, it wasn't just this layer. Even the second and third layers, which were the second and third layers, had been almost fully explored. Only the third region would occasionally have some new supreme ruins discovered. Further down, starting from the fourth area, it was still in the exploration stage. From the fourth area to the sixth area, it was the most important area for the major clans to explore. In these 4 areas, there were still a lot of undiscovered supreme relics. Every time a new supreme relic appeared, the experts of the major clans would come one after another. At this stage, the main good things came from these 3 areas. For example, this time, the new supreme relic discovered by the Gu family was located in the 5th area, near a battlefield stronghold of the dragon gods. In every level of the Chaos Battlefield, various levels of supreme relics could be found. The lowest level was restricted to the existences below the 5th level of the Imperial stage. This was called a primary relic. Therefore, many geniuses at the 4th level of the Emperor stage were stuck at this level, so they specialized in exploring the primary relic of the Chaos Battlefield. Susan Luo was one of them. Above that were the intermediate relic, which was restricted to those below the Supreme God stage. For example, the dragon gods could at most enter the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor. Those who reached the Super Dragon God stage could not enter. Then there were the Advanced Relic, the Super Relic, and the Top Relic. There were a total of 5 levels of relic. The level of the relic had nothing to do with the battlefield area. Even the first area, which was the closest to the surface, would have the highest level of the top relic. Only supreme experts were qualified to enter. Even the 7th area, which was still unexplored at this stage, would have the lowest level of the primary relic. The speculation of the major clans about the relics of these experts was that in ancient times, too many experts had fallen in the chaotic battlefield. The relics located in different areas were all left by experts of different eras. The deeper the relic was, the older and more ancient it was. It was easy to find some especially ancient relics that surpassed the era, the kind that were very useful to the experts of the various clans. Of course, starting from the 7th area of the Chaos battlefield, all the way to the 8th, 9th, and 10th areas, the deeper they went, the slower the exploration progress of the various clans. Especially the 10th area, the depth of the ground was basically full of destructive power. Some people had explored the relic, but once an ordinary person went deep underground, they would not return. Therefore, it was still in a very barren state. Starting from the 7th area, there would be many prehistoric beasts with extremely terrifying destructive power. Once an outsider entered, it would be very likely to die. Very few people would go there. Currently, the various races were basically exploring between the 4th and 6th regions. Jiang Xinwu's blood boiled with excitement when he found out about this information. The grade of the divine dragon's blood essence that he had discovered was coincidentally the best candidate to explore the primary region. Chapter 4703. Gu Xinyue took the 12 people who were going to the Supreme Relic this time, including Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai, to the 5 Extremes Black Ice Holy Land. Of course, they went through the space-time formation in the city. If one wanted to head to the Chaos battlefield, they could only go through the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land. The 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land had a space-time formation that led to the Chaos battlefield. It could directly connect to the stronghold that the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land and several other holy lands operated in the 5th layer of the Chaos battlefield. It was said that the dragon gods would send a total of 100 people this time, and the 12 people from the Gu family were only one of them. There were also dragon warriors from other holy lands. In addition, there were 4th-level martial emperors from other races who were going to enter the Supreme Relic. This was inevitable. After all, once the Supreme Relic was opened, it would soon be discovered by other races. But the race who found it first and tried to open it had the right to dispose of it. According to the convention, this Supreme Relic was discovered by the Dragon Gods. So the Dragon Gods could send 100 people into the Supreme Relic and announce that it was the home of the Dragon Gods. Other races besides the Dragon Gods were also qualified to enter according to the order of arrival. The second race to come to the Supreme Relic could choose 30 people to enter. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th races could choose 20 people to enter, adding up to 90 people, which was less than the home race. All the races had always followed this set of rules on the Chaos battlefield. Even when the Dragon Gods were besieged by the 4 races, they still followed this set of rules. If someone did not follow the rules, he would be the enemy of all races and would be expelled from the Chaos battlefield, not allowed to come back. So there was no need to worry about this. Kong Xinmu followed the Gu family team led by Gu Xinyue and set off directly from a giant space-time formation in the 5 Extremes Black Ice Holy Land. The next moment, with a flash of white light, he came to the central stronghold of the Dragon Gods in the Chaos battlefield. He opened his eyes and found that the first thing he saw was a blue sky and white clouds. This chaotic battlefield did not look so barren on the surface. Instead, it was a beautiful fairyland with green mountains and clear waters. The central stronghold of the Dragon God clan was built in a green valley. Countless powerful dragon warriors were walking around in a hurry. Around this stronghold, there was a supreme defensive formation protecting the entire stronghold. This was the central stronghold of the Dragon God clan to explore the chaotic battlefield, and it was a very important place. Surrounding the valley was a dark green mountain range that stretched for an unknown distance. But when Kong Xinmu and the others came, they all felt relaxed and happy. The heaven and earth spiritual qi in the surrounding air was too dense. Such rich spiritual qi of heaven and earth was greatly beneficial to the cultivation of dragon martial artists. There were even some mysterious elements in the air. If one could comprehend these elements, it would be extremely important to the improvement of dragon martial artists' strength. These mysterious elements must have come from the supreme existences that fought in the chaotic battlefield in ancient times. The battle between countless supreme experts filled the entire chaotic battlefield. The air of this great world was filled with a tyrannical aura of power. It was intoxicating. As for whether one could comprehend it or not, it depended on each person's luck. Of course, there was no dragon mark energy in the air of this chaotic battlefield. The grade of dragon martial artist's divine dragon blood could not be improved in the outside world of the chaotic battlefield. But it was said that in some of the supreme experts' relics of the ancestors of the dragon god clan, there were extremely pure cultivation resources. Some jade materials full of dragon mark energy could make a super divine dragon break through to a supreme divine dragon, which was an extremely shocking super resource. No one could know what was in every supreme relic before they explored it. Every supreme relic was protected by some kind of tyrannical power of heaven and earth in the chaotic battlefield. It could not be opened by force. Even supreme experts could not break it. After opening it, they needed to wait for 30 days for the protective power to dissipate. Then outsiders could enter. This period of time was almost a month. After a month, all the experts of the various clans who were waiting to enter could step in and explore it. Come with me. Let's first meet up with everyone who set off this time. Gu Xinyu said to Kong Xinmu and the others. This time, the 12 of us represent the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice. However, the Dragon God Clan has a total of 100 people. Among them, there are dragon martial artists from the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land, the Nether Flame Divine Dragon Holy Land, and the Heavenly Phoenix Feather Holy Land. These 3 holy lands are closer to our Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice, so they have joined forces to build a stronghold in the chaotic battlefield. When they discover the supreme relic, they almost always enter together. Kong Xinmu had also heard about this, but he did not care. This was because the dragon martial artist teams of each holy land basically acted separately after entering the supreme relic. What the dragon martial artists of each holy land could obtain was up to fate. In the end, the spoils of war were not handed over to the higher-ups, but to the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice. Of course, this time, Kong Xinmu and the others were considered a more private team. This was because the supreme relic was discovered by one of Gu Xinyue's uncles. The credit for this discovery was that the Gu family could send out 12 people alone, and most of the things discovered would be collected by the Gu family themselves. The Gu family definitely cherished this opportunity, but the Gu family could not bring out so many experts. What should they do? They could only call for external help. Therefore, this time, Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai could be considered to be helping the Gu family. However, as long as it was something obtained in the supreme relic, the Gu family would only collect 1/10 of it, which was already very good for Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai. If not for the Gu family's invitation, Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai definitely would not have been able to obtain such an opportunity. In the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice, it was not easy to compete for the opportunity to enter the supreme relic. One had to pass through layers of selection, and most of them were selected in advance. Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai had just joined the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice, so they basically had no chance of being sent to the supreme relic. It was the Gu family that gave them this opportunity, and giving them 1/10 of the profits was also a form of responsibility to the Gu family. Of course, no one knew what would happen after entering the supreme relic. In the past, there had even been cases where the supreme relic had directly collapsed as soon as everyone entered. At that time, the explorers of the various races had suffered heavy casualties, and only the experts who had survived had obtained sufficient rewards. It could be said that they had returned from a rewarding journey. This time, Kong Xinmu's appetite was not small. At the 4th level of the Emperor realm, he could be said to be an invincible existence. At the very least, the Black Dragon's consciousness and the ancestral demon god's consciousness thought so there shouldn't be too much of a problem. Chapter 4704. After Kong Xinmu arrived at the central stronghold of the Dragon God clan in the Chaos battlefield, he didn't have time to look around. Because they were pressed for time. It had been more than 20 days since the discovery of the Supreme Relic, and the real opening day was close at hand. Therefore, for the entire vast central stronghold, Kong Xinmu just passed by, and then left through the space-time formation of the central stronghold. The place they were going to was the 5th layer of the underground of the big world of the Chaos battlefield. That was the place that was 50,000 miles underground. That was already very deep underground, but it was not the deepest in the chaos battlefield. It was said that the real 10th layer was 100,000 miles underground, and there were countless horrible forces buried there, as well as endless supreme relic. Nowadays, very few people could come back alive from that place. When Kong Shinmu walked out of the space-time formation again, he found himself in a relatively dark space. This relatively dark space was located in the underground of the 5th layer of the chaos battlefield. There were many flames and crystals around that emitted light, but compared with the sunlight, it was still a lot worse, so the whole environment looked a little gloomy and weird. Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai had now met up with the dragon warriors sent by the other 3 holy lands of the Dragon God clan. There were a total of 100 people, no more, no less. They gathered together in the small stronghold of the Dragon God clan in the 5th layer. The small stronghold was also very spacious, and it was also surrounded by a very strong protective formation. This protective formation was mainly to prevent people from other races from attacking. As long as they could resist the other side, then there would be time to call for help from other places. Therefore, even if the situation of the Dragon God clan was more serious now, few people would dare to attack these small strongholds in the chaos battlefield. Because there were too many such small strongholds, when one was attacked, the dragon warriors guarding the other small strongholds could all rush over quickly, because the space-time formation was completely connected. What's more, now the Dragon God clan took the initiative to retreat, gave up many small strongholds, and used the limited manpower to defend the more important strongholds, so it was more difficult to attack. The Starry Sky Storm Holy Land, the Earthly Fire Divine Dragon Holy Land, and the Heavenly Robe Phoenix Feather Holy Land were holy lands allied with the 5-pole Mysterious Ice Holy Land. The 100 of them had set out this time precisely because they intended to find even more treasures in the new Supreme Ruins. However, even though the 4 holy lands were in an alliance, there were still some open and veiled struggles between them. There was competition everywhere, even within the 5 extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land itself, not to mention the other holy lands. However, Kong Shinmu didn't care much about these things, so he didn't know much about them. When exploring the Supreme Ruins, the disciples of the 4 holy lands would not cooperate with each other, but they would not be hostile either. When they saw each other, they would just take a detour. In the general environment, they would definitely join forces to fight against the cultivators of other races. Therefore, Kong Shinmu did not know much about his teammates who were exploring the Supreme Ruins with him. It was probably only Xueqi who had been chatting with him along the way, telling him about the chaotic battlefield, which made Kong Shinmu feel grateful. He didn't know what kind of person Xueqi was, but at least she was very polite, so he was willing to communicate with her. Moreover, Gu Qinglian had specifically told him to take good care of Xueqi. The 12 people from the Gu family, because they weren't disciples directly dispatched by the 4 holy lands, seemed a little out of place in the team of 100. The others were all contributing to the holy lands in this exploration. Only Kong Shinmu's group of 12 was not for the Holy Lands, but for the Gu family of the 5 extreme Mysterious Ice City. As for Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai, they were only called by the Gu family to help, so it was impossible for the others to know. Apart from the disciples of the 5 extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land, the disciples of the other 3 Holy Lands almost didn't know the identities of Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai, and no one knew that they were the trump cards of the Gu family this time. In the elementary ruins, it could be said that Kong Shinmu had the absolute strength to crush everyone else. For Kong Shinmu, the most dangerous thing was probably the danger in the Supreme Ruins itself. Even if it was the competitors of other races, for Kong Shinmu, there wasn't much to pay attention to. They first rested for the night in the Dragon God clan's stronghold in the 5th area. Early the next morning, they first listened to a senior's lecture, mainly about the people that the other races would send this time. Some very famous elementary ruins hunters would accompany them into the elementary ruins this time. This time, the people exploring the Supreme Ruins with our Dragon God clan mainly include 30 people from the Demon God clan, 20 people each from the Thousand-Winged Snake clan, the Ancient Phoenix clan, and the Sea God clan. Among them, the Demon God clan has a famous elementary ruins hunter, the Evil Prince. The Thousand-Winged Snake clan has the 4th princess of the King of Yellow and Black, Princess Azure Lotus. The Ancient Phoenix clan has the Genius by Feng, and the Sea God clan has an elementary ruins warrior specially trained by their Shrimp clan, named Mighty Heaven. All 4 clans had geniuses participating. The Demon God clan's the Evil Prince, the Thousand-Winged Snake clan's Princess Azure Lotus, the Ancient Phoenix clan's Genius by Feng, and the Sea God clan's warrior Mighty Heaven. These 4 people were the best of the 4th level of the Emperor stage, and their strength was extremely terrifying. If they led the team, they could basically ensure that their own losses were minimized. As for the harvest, it was secondary. The key was that their presence would also reduce the harvest of other races, which was somewhat harmful to others without benefiting themselves. But most of the time, when the major races explored the Supreme Ruins, they basically increased the losses of other races in the Supreme Ruins as much as possible and reduced their own losses. As for the harvest, as long as they obtained something, it would be considered a profit. Anyway, in these Supreme Ruins, there were a lot of cultivation resources, but these cultivation resources were not the most important thing. The most important thing was the kind of strategic items. But the number of strategic items was not many, and there would only be one in dozens of Supreme Ruins. So under normal circumstances basically, this was not the goal, but the main goal was to weaken other races. Our Dragon God clan has 100 people participating this time, and there are also 2 geniuses. The Heavenly Robe Phoenix Feather Holy Land's 4th class disciple, Yu Jingxian. There is also the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land's 4th class disciple, Luo Xiao. Both of you have reached the level of 4th class disciples with the Divine Dragon's Inheritance Blood Essence from the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor. You are the elites we will be sending out this time. Of course, there is also a new disciple from the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Holy Land. His name is Kong Shinmu. This young man has just passed the 4th level of the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Holy Tower and achieved 95 points, making him a 5th class disciple. Chapter 4705. Aside from the disciples of the Holy Land of 5 Extremes, not many people knew that the Holy Land of 5 Extremes had produced Kong Shinmu this time. Achieving 95 points on the 4th level of the Holy Tower of 5 Extremes and becoming a 5th grade disciple was not an easy feat. It could even be said that this was an absolutely difficult feat since ancient times. Which one of those who had achieved such an achievement was not a powerhouse who carried the dragon gods? In other words, this Kong Shinmu was very likely to become a leader of the Holy Land of 5 Extremes in the future. This was no laughing matter. Unfortunately, very few people knew that Kong Shinmu had passed the Crystal Arrow test. Otherwise, it would be even more terrifying. Until now, only a few young elders of the Holy Land of 5 Extremes knew about this. They were extremely secretive about this matter and did not report it to anyone else. Apart from them, perhaps only the higher-level cultivators of the Holy Land of 5 Extremes mysterious ice knew about it. Naturally, this included Emperor Shi and the mystical dragon. However, it was impossible for these people to leak Jiang Shenwu's accomplishments, because it would bring danger to Kong Shinmu. As for the title of genius, now that Kong Shinmu's achievement was known to the world, it was shocking enough to make all the dragon martialists feel a sense of respect for him. In the great world of the dragon gods, the strong were truly respected. Moreover, with a great enemy in front of them and the other races outside, the dragon gods were generally very united. At this time, whoever was more talented and stronger would gain the respect of others. This was the case at this moment. When the surrounding dragon martialists looked at Kong Shinmu, there was no mockery or disbelief. Instead, there was only a vague sense of awe and respect. This was the treatment that the strong could receive. It was just like how, in the demon god race, the evil prince was like a legend. Many of the younger generation of the demon god race saw him as a role model. And now, Kong Shinmu, just his reputation alone was enough to gain respect. Of course, those who respected him were the younger generation of dragon warriors with average talent. Their talent was limited, and it was impossible for them to be enemies with Kong Shinmu. Therefore, they only respected Kong Shinmu. However, some extremely talented dragon martial artists may not be very optimistic about Kong Shinmu. For example, Luo Xiao from the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land and Yu Jingxian from the Heavenly Robe Phoenix Feather Holy Land were able to rank as 5th grade disciples of their respective holy lands even though they were only at the 4th layer of the Dragon Emperor. One had to know that Xiao Bai was only a 3rd class disciple. If she wanted to become a 4th class disciple, she was still a level away. It was obvious that Luo Xiao and Yu Jingxian were stronger than Xiao Bai. However, they had enjoyed the cultivation resources of the Dragon God's macro world. If Xiao Bai had been cultivating in the Dragon God clan's great world, her current achievements might not be worse than theirs. In other words, Xiao Bai's current achievements would definitely be higher than theirs. Of course, these were just ifs, and there were no ifs in this world. The fact was that the current Xiao Bai was not as strong as these two. However, if they wanted to attack Kong Shinmu, Kong Shinmu would really look down on them. There was already a gap in their levels of strength. Even if they attacked him together, he could still deal with them calmly. One had to know that he had recently consolidated a lot of cultivation strength. Even before he came to the Dragon God's macro world, Kong Shinmu was confident that he could fight either Luo Xiao or Yu Jingxian alone, let alone others. Of course, now Luo Xiao and Yu Jingxian would not attack Kong Shinmu, and it was unlikely that they would attack Kong Shinmu in the Supreme Relic. After all, they were all in the camp of the Dragon Gods. Now that they were facing foreign enemies, the most important thing was to face the Evil Prince, Princess Blue Lotus, Bai Feng, and Wei Mengtian. These four geniuses from other clans had been famous for a long time, and it was said that they were about to break through to the 5th level of the Martial Emperor realm. Among them, the Evil Prince was looking everywhere for an opportunity to break through, and the Dragon Martial Continent was just one of his stops on this trip. Unfortunately, this guy fought with Kong Shinmu on the Dragon Martial Continent, and until now, he did not know that he had been tricked and used by Kong Shinmu. However, I did not expect that the Evil Prince would come to the Chaos Battlefield. Below the stage, Kong Shinmu listened to the narration of the seniors. He narrowed his eyes and was obviously a little surprised. The Evil Prince was an expert of the Demon God clan, and his Scarlet Rose fan was an extremely powerful Holy Spirit demon weapon. It was stronger than most of the weapons that Kong Shinmu had. However, the Evil Prince was no longer a top-notch expert in Kong Shinmu's eyes. Of course, this did not exclude the possibility that the Evil Prince had become stronger recently, and Kong Shinmu might not be able to easily crush him. Since the Evil Prince had come to the Chaos Battlefield and wanted to enter the Supreme Relic together with them, Xiaobai could not hide from him. Once Xiaobai appears, the Evil Prince will know that the matter of killing the two geniuses of the Void Human clan is definitely related to us. If that's the case, then the Evil Prince will likely have some speculations about the matter of killing Su Sen. Of course, this cannot be confirmed. After all, when I killed Su Sen Luo, I did not leave behind any aura. However, just killing the two geniuses of the Void Human clan is enough for the Void Human clan to come looking for trouble with me. As for the Martial Dragon Continent, I don't have to worry about it. It seems that the Dragon Gods have already reached an agreement with the 9 great clans. Kong Shinmu pondered. Others did not know what he was thinking, but Kong Shinmu had already diverted his thoughts to the war between races. Here, the juniors that were going to the Supreme Relic rarely had to face the scene of a war between races. However, Kong Shinmu had seen a real war between races, and he had even experienced it for a year. During this period of time, if it weren't for the hidden Black Dragon Stone, a powerful dragon weapon from the ancient Phoenix clan, Kong Shinmu would not have been able to enter so smoothly. He might have even encountered danger. That was a true battlefield of life and death. This competition in the Supreme Relic was also a war between races. The Evil Prince, since you want to compete with me, then come at me. A murderous intent flashed in Kong Shinmu's eyes. If the Evil Prince died in the Supreme Relic, then he would not be able to spread the news of Xiaobai. Then, the matter of Kong Shinmu killing the geniuses of the Void Human clan would not be exposed. Of course, the premise was that before entering the Supreme Relic, Kong Shinmu and Xiaobai had not been exposed and had not been discovered by the other party. However, now that the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Holy Land had a policy to protect Kong Shinmu, then they would definitely not expose them, especially when they knew that the Evil Prince would also appear this time. As expected. While Kong Shinmu was still thinking about this matter, a Super Divine Dragon Senior came to guide Kong Shinmu and the others. This time, you will not enter with the team of the Dragon Gods. Instead, wait for everyone to enter before following behind them. Chapter 4706. There were many things that Kong Shinmu did not need to think too much about. The higher-ups had already arranged for them. However, such an arrangement made the others in the team feel a little puzzled, such as Xueqi. However, Xueqi did not ask anything. She knew that the higher-ups had their reasons for making such an arrangement. However, the 2 men and 2 women from the Gu family were a little dissatisfied. One of the young men said, "Why such an arrangement? If we enter the relic 1 step later, we will be 1 step behind others. Are they looking down on the Gu family and deliberately targeting us?" "I don't mean that." The white-haired super mystical dragon senior smiled faintly and glanced at the young man who spoke. He said directly, "This is for safety reasons. and it has also been approved by your Gu clan's clan leader. Alright, enough with the nonsense. Hurry up and get ready. The so-called preparation was the preparation needed to explore the supreme relic. Everyone who entered the relic would be equipped with a crystal ring. This ring could predict danger within a certain range. Of course, the ring could only target the danger that existed in the supreme relic itself. Through the experience of the predecessors, many traps and such could be detected in advance. It could not be said that the crystal ring could avoid all dangers, but most of the more threatening traps could be avoided by relying on the crystal ring. As for the other aspects, they could only rely on the dragon warriors themselves. Therefore this time, Kong Shinmu did not meet the evil prince outside the supreme relic. This guy could be considered his old rival. Although they had only fought once, to Kong Shinmu, if he met him in the supreme relic, he had to get rid of him. Otherwise, he would be in trouble when he came out. After each of them had obtained the crystal ring, a total of 12 people followed the Super Divine Dragon Senior and left the small stronghold. They headed directly in the direction of the supreme relic. This time, they flew over. In the 5th level of the disorderly battlefield, they flew along many underground tunnels. At such a depth, there were very few large open spaces. Basically, there were many underground tunnels. These underground tunnels were numbered and connected in all directions. No matter which way they went, they would lead to their destination. Cultivators from various races had been continuously excavating the supreme relic at such a depth, so these underground tunnels had appeared. Originally, there were no roads below, but as more people walked, they became roads. This was the situation in the underground area of the chaotic battlefield. Every underground passageway was wide enough to ensure that existences at the level of unparalleled divine dragons could pass through smoothly. Of course, this was referring to the main roads. If it were some of the more secluded paths, not to mention unparalleled divine dragons, even the bodies of super divine dragons might not be able to pass through. However, with their abilities, they could easily smash through these obstacles and head towards the place they wanted to go. In fact, they might even discover a brand new supreme ruin along the way. That would be considered a great contribution. Of course, Kong Shinmu and the others did not dare to wander around in this chaotic battlefield. He followed the Super Dragon God Senior as he flew through the intersecting underground tunnels. He could not help but think of Lin Yuji and the other two. In order to frame him, Donghuang Yonggu College had sent Lin Yuji and the other two to the chaotic battlefield. However, Kong Shinmu now knew that with their cultivation realms, it was not yet high enough for them to be sent out to explore the supreme ruins. Basically, they would be doing some administrative work in the stronghold and arranging some things according to the instructions of their superiors. There would not be any danger in such matters. If there's a chance, maybe I can visit them. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. Lin Yuji and the other two were sent out by Donghuang Yonggu College, so they should be in the stronghold behind Donghuang Yonggu College. Donghuang Yonggu College was built by the Clear Sky Dragon of Calamity. That was a senior from another sacred land and also belonged to the Dragon God clan. It was not a big deal for Kong Shinmu to visit them. The key was to wait for everything to settle down. Not long after, Kong Shinmu realized that the tunnel they were flying through had become a little rugged and narrow. It was obvious that it was not a newly opened tunnel. It extended forward like a valley. They had reached a small path, which was also the entrance to the supreme ruins. Moreover, there was more than one entrance. There were several other entrances. They continued to move forward along the tunnel. Soon, Kong Shinmu felt a strong and unparalleled power aura coming from the front. It was a wave of power that spread to the surroundings. That is the power aura of the supreme ruins. It is constantly spreading to the surroundings. Every time a supreme ruins opens, we have to wait for 30 days. Within these 30 days, it is impossible not to be discovered by other clans. Super Dragon God smiled helplessly and said, "Everyone, this trip to the supreme ruins is up to you. The entire ruins will last for a month, and then it will collapse. If everything goes well, I hope you can come out 7 days in advance. Of course, this is also for safety reasons." When he said this, he nodded at Kong Shinmu. Obviously, this was for the sake of Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai. They did not want to meet with the evil prince. Kong Shinmu nodded, indicating that he understood. Of course, if he killed the evil prince in the supreme ruins, he would not need to abide by this agreement to come out early. No matter what, they entered later this time. There were some disadvantages, but there were also some advantages. Some of the dangers of the ruins in the early stages had already been explored by the vanguard team. If they entered later, they might not fall behind too much. Soon, they turned two corners in the tunnel and saw an extremely open terrain in front of them. This was an extremely wide underground space, just like the supreme ruins that Kong Shinmu saw in the Dragon Martial Continent. However, the supreme ruins in this chaotic battlefield were all very dangerous. They were not as simple and crude as the supreme ruins in the Dragon Martial Continent. It could be seen that the inheritor of the myriad ghost fire demon god that he had devoured had died in a hurry. He did not even have time to build a decent tomb for himself. What appeared in the underground space in front of them was a huge stone door. It was a powerful barrier formed by the convergence of supreme power. Ordinary supreme experts could not break it by force. Now, after 30 days of brewing, the stone door had completely opened. Outside the stone door embedded in the mountain wall, there were some experts from different clans. They came from the Dragon Gods, Demon Gods, Thousand-Winged Snake Clan, Ancient Phoenix Clan, and Sea God Clan. It was the first time that Kong Shinmu saw experts from different clans. Chapter 4707. Of course, the clansmen of the Ancient Phoenix Clan did not necessarily communicate with each other. Many clans and leaders shared some news, but some news was concealed. For example, regarding the Martial Dragon Continent, the powerhouse of the Ancient Phoenix Clan who was responsible for the Martial Dragon Continent would not spread news about Kong Shinmu. Therefore, the Ancient Phoenix Clan in front of Kong Shinmu did not know who he was. He absolutely could not treat the Ancient Phoenix Clan as one of his own. After entering into the unparalleled ruins, the different races would be absolutely hostile to each other. It was impossible to mediate between them. Only if they had a common enemy would they be able to temporarily form an alliance. When Kong Shinmu and the others arrived, the powerhouses outside the stone gate were a little surprised, but they did not say anything. The Dragon God Clan was the host this time, so it was normal for some people to arrive late. After all, everyone knew that the Dragon God Clan was in a tense situation now. It would be a little difficult to gather 100 strong juniors. Kong Shinmu followed the seniors and saw the powerhouses of the Demon God Clan looking straight ahead. The powerhouses of the Thousand-Winged Snake Clan gathered together and seemed to be chatting about something. Several beautiful female powerhouses of the Ancient Phoenix Clan were looking at the young men in Kong Shinmu's team with great interest. There were also 3 powerhouses of the Sea God Clan. Each of them had blue skin, white eyes, and a tyrannical aura of the Sea God Clan. Kong Shinmu looked at them one by one and was secretly vigilant. How the powerhouses outside were, the geniuses inside were. He could see some things. However, this could only be used as a reference. Okay, all the powerhouses here are the last 12 people of the Dragon God Clan. Go in now. Seeing that Jiang Shenwu and the others had arrived, the cultivator of the Dragon God Clan who had been guarding in front of the stone gate came up to welcome them into the stone gate. He looked to the left and right and said lightly, "From now on, no one can enter the Supreme Relic until 1 month later, when the Supreme Relic is completely closed and collapses." As the voice fell, Kong Shinmu and the others were sent to the stone gate. The 12 of them walked through the stone door. Except for Kong Shinmu, the others were a little nervous. The 10 geniuses from the Gu family, regardless of whether they had the surname Gu or not, had come to this kind of scene for the first time. They felt a great pressure in front of those terrifyingly powerful experts. Even Xueqi was the same. "Big brother Kong Shinmu, we'll listen to you this time." Xueqi came to Kong Shinmu's side and said to him, "Yes." Kong Shinmu nodded. He was the strongest here, so everyone listened to him. That way it would be easier for them to act. It wasn't just a matter of strength, but more importantly, it was a matter of experience. There were many dangers that Kong Shinmu could foresee and deal with, but if others encountered them, they would most likely face death. "Once we enter the ruins, listen to my commands." Kong Shinmu didn't think too much about the experts outside the stone door. He collected his thoughts and focused all his attention on the supreme ruins before him. Kong Shinmu could sense that the supreme ruins were left behind by a supreme expert from an extremely ancient race. However, Kong Shinmu wasn't sure which race the expert was from. Many of the supreme skeletons excavated from the supreme ruins cultivated some unknown inherited power. Those races might no longer exist in this world. However, there would still be many good things in the supreme ruins that they left behind. They couldn't miss it. If the Supreme Skeletons could be transported out and absorb some of the Supreme Essence energy within, it would also be of great benefit to the cultivators. Facts had proven that the cultivators who frequently explored the Supreme Ruins would have a higher chance of breaking through to the Supreme level in the future if they could come out of the ruins alive and absorb some of the Supreme Essence energy. This was the reason why the major races attached great importance to the Supreme Ruins. Mastering the Supreme Ruins would allow more Supreme experts to appear in one's own race. Soon, Kong Shinmu entered the Supreme Ruins with 11 people. Feeling the sudden drop in the surrounding temperature and the cold air, all of them completely calmed down and began to observe the surrounding situation. Behind the stone door was a passage. The stone door had just been opened not long ago, and there was still a strong historical aura in the passage. Countless dust fluttered and scattered in the passage. The others should have already gone deep inside. Every Supreme Ruins could be said to be a maze. In the maze, there were paths of life and paths of death, and there were also many glamorous and confusing paths. Once they went wrong, it meant that they were one step further away from the treasures in the ruins. Kong Shinmu led the people forward carefully, but there should be no danger in the front part of the journey. So the young man from the Gu family, who thought that the dragon gods had underestimated the Gu family, complained again, "Kong Shinmu, others have already walked this path. Do we still need to be so careful?" "It is necessary." Kong Shinmu answered his question directly, making the young man suddenly speechless. This young man's name was Gu Jianting, and he was considered a pretty good genius in the Gu family. Among the people present, except for Kong Shinmu, who was a 5th-class disciple, and Xiao Bai and Yu Cixi, who were 3rd-class disciples, Gu Jianting was the strongest. He originally planned to break through to the 3rd-class disciple this time, but unfortunately, when he challenged the Holy Tower, he only got 55 points. In the end, he was just a little short of becoming a 3rd-class disciple, which made this guy very annoyed. It was undeniable that his talent was good, and he was also young. But because of his young age, he was a little frivolous. Gu Jianting, who had come to such an environment like the Supreme Ruins for the first time, sneered at Kong Shinmu's cautiousness. Under normal circumstances, Gu Jianting would also be cautious, but now that hundreds of people had walked this path, what else was there to be afraid of? However, just as Gu Jianting felt that Kong Shinmu was being too cautious, every one of them suddenly felt an incomparably terrifying power surging towards them from all directions. Under the influence of this terrifying power, every one of them instantly lost themselves. Even Jiang Shenwu was in a daze as he noticed that he seemed to have arrived above a violent ocean. The surface of the ocean was filled with flashes of lightning and rumbling thunder, and an enormous tornado was spreading towards him. All of this seemed real. However, Kong Shinmu knew very well that this was just an illusion. Perhaps it was to test the perseverance of those who entered the Supreme Ruins. Although he knew that it was just an illusion, Jiang Shenwu also felt that his divine dragon body was floating on the surface of the sea. Around him, there was a violent storm, lightning flashing, and thunder rumbling. Countless terrifying forces were sweeping towards him. How could he break through this illusory array? The demon god ancestor wanted to help, but was stopped by Kong Shinmu. There was no need for a senior to take action for such a small matter. Chapter 4708. On the surface of the sea in the illusion, there were violent storms, lightning flashes, thunder rolls, and tornadoes' roars. Everything was a scene of destruction. No matter where the cultivators ran, they would not be able to escape the fate of destruction. Once they were sucked into the roaring thunder tornado, they would probably suffer endless pain. Therefore, Kong Shinmu dove straight into the seabed. In the next moment, his entire body seemed to be immersed in seawater. There were still many turbulent undercurrents in the seawater, constantly approaching him. However, these turbulent undercurrents were much easier to deal with than the terrifying destructive power on the surface of the sea. Kong Shinmu didn't use his own strength. He just kept avoiding the turbulent undercurrents in the sea, and then quickly swam towards a place at the bottom of the sea that was emitting white light. Soon, the white light in front of him dispersed. He exited the illusion, but found himself in another place. This was an underground space, surrounded by square stone walls. The entire space was very wide, and there was a stone statue in the center. This was a statue of a 3-headed dragon. The left dragon head was surrounded by an icy aura, the right dragon head was surrounded by a fiery aura, and the middle dragon head actually contained an incomparably profound aura. The appearance of this aura caused the demon god ancestor consciousness in Kong Shinmu's body to be instantly alarmed. Kid, you're pretty lucky. The supreme expert in this relic actually cultivated the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's legacy. Ancestor Fiend Celestial clicked his tongue in wonder. Heaven-lacking demonic dragon of fire and ice? Kong Shinmu frowned slightly. Does that mean that this supreme relic belongs to the ancestors of the Dragon God clan? No. The heaven-deficient demonic dragon of fire and ice isn't a legacy of the dragon gods. Strictly speaking, it's a system of its own. It's neither a dragon nor a demon. The demon god explained, the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire was even stronger than I was in the primordial era. It could control ice and fire, and its control over ice and fire was impeccable. But most importantly, it had the power of the heaven-deficient. This power belongs to the Tao of time. Although it cannot control time, it can devour it. Devour time? What does that mean? Kong Shinmu didn't quite understand. It means that if you have the power of the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire, you can devour other people's time and use it for yourself. Ancestor Demon God said solemnly, this power is extremely heaven-defying. However, to devour the time of others, it can only be done when they are at their weakest and unable to resist. Of course, if someone is willing to let you devour them, that's fine too. The time devoured can be used for cultivation, and it can also be used for some other things. All in all, this ability is extremely heaven-defying. If possible, you can use the devouring power of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon to use this inheritance as a cultivation aid. Kong Shinmu nodded. Since there was such an opportunity, he would definitely not miss it. The inheritance of the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire was indeed very powerful. Before he knew it, he had been sent to this space. He was alone in this space, and the statue in the center. Other than that, he didn't find anyone else, but he sensed the presence of quite a few auras. It seemed that someone had come here not long ago. In the previous walrus illusion, everyone dealt with it differently. Perhaps this will cause everyone to be sent to different places? Kong Shinmu didn't think too much about it. He quickly searched for the exit of this space and soon found a small stone door behind the statue in the center. That stone door led to another passage. Kong Shinmu figured that since he was the last one to enter, there was no hurry. He waited for a while, and sure enough, the others arrived. Xiao Bai, another Gu family descendant, and two younger members of the Gu family retainers had also come to this place with him. Including Kong Shinmu, there were 5 people in total. It's about time. The others might have gone to other places. Let's move on. Kong Shinmu didn't have a choice. He didn't expect to be separated as soon as they entered the relic. He didn't know if the others were in the same place. Or had the entire team been split up. Kong Shinmu didn't know. He could only care about himself now. He led Xiao Bai and the 3 Gu family descendants toward the small stone door behind the statue. Behind the stone door was a passageway. On both sides of the passageway were dragon heads. The dragon heads burned with endless flames. It was hard to tell if the flames had been burning for a long time or had only started burning after the relic opened. All in all, the power of the flames made Kong Shinmu feel cold. Not only was there no warmth, but it was filled with the smell of death. This is the divine deficient ice fire demonic dragon's dead spirit's demonic fire. It's extremely lethal and can even burn a person's soul. The demon god ancestor reminded him. So Kong Shinmu reminded the 4 behind him, don't touch the flames on the dragon heads. In fact, even if he didn't say it, the others wouldn't touch anything in there. They moved quickly along the passageway behind the stone door. After a while, they came to a disc-shaped underground space. This disc-shaped underground space was very spacious. It could even accommodate 100 Dragon Emperor-level fighters in their dragon forms and fight. In this place, Kong Shinmu was immediately attracted by a bundle of flames in the center of the disc-shaped space. It was a blooming dead spirit's demonic fire flower. The flames condensed into a bouquet of flowers. The place was filled with an endless smell of death, making the entire disc-shaped space a little cold. The dead spirit's demonic fire flower was surrounded by layers of barriers. Hexagonal crystals containing flames filled the layers of barriers. The hexagonal crystals seemed to be extremely powerful treasures, emitting waves of tempting aura that could move one's soul. When Kong Shinmu and the others arrived, there were already many people attacking the layers of barriers. Unfortunately, without exception, none of them could break through the layers of barriers. Kong Shinmu quickly observed calmly. There were a total of 21 people present. There were people from the Demon God clan, the Thousand-Winged Snake clan, the Ancient Phoenix clan, the Sea God clan, and 3 from the Dragon God clan. These people's auras were very powerful. Every one of them was a level 4 martial emperor. Their combat strength was definitely at the peak of the level 4 martial emperor level. However, even though they joined forces, they still couldn't break through the barriers of the hexagonal crystals. Now they were at their wits' end. Chapter 4709. One of the 3 dragon gods present was a 4th-class genius from the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land, Luo Xiao. Luo Xiao was a very dignified young man. At this moment, he had transformed into a Starry Sky Storm dragon and brought 2 disciples from the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land to the battlefield. After Jiang Xinwu came over, he felt that there were many traces of other disciples of the Dragon God clan passing by. But now they were no longer in this space. They should have left this space and gone to other places first. After all, the Dragon Gods had entered this space with 100 people, which was much more than the other races. Therefore, they had the ability and confidence to act separately. Luo Xiao led 2 disciples from the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land to block the 18 people from the other races in this space, so they could not catch up with the vanguard. Obviously, there had been some small skirmishes and battles, but the battles were not fierce. Everyone was just testing each other. Their main focus was on breaking the energy barrier in the center. Everyone could feel that the hexagonal fiery crystal in the barrier was a powerful treasure. Most importantly, the dead spirit's demonic fire flower in the center was even more desirable. Many treasures unearthed from the supreme relic could be integrated into one's war weapon, so that the hexagonal fiery crystal and the dead spirit's demonic fire flower were no exception. Kong Shinmu looked around, mainly paying attention to the demon god's team. When he did not see the evil prince, he heaved a sigh of relief. If the evil prince was here, he would have to fight with all his might. At the very least, he would have to kill all the members of the demon god's team. Since the evil prince was not here, Kong Shinmu could advance and retreat at will. When Kong Shinmu and the others arrived, Luo Xiao chuckled and said, "It seems that the overall strength of the dragon gods has increased. If we break this energy barrier, we will have a higher chance of getting the hexagonal fiery crystal." Behind him, a disciple of the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land calmly said, "Senior brother Luo Xiao, this group of people are not on the same side as us. They came to this relic to fight for treasures for their families, not for the Dragon God clan, not for the Holy Land." Luo Xiao's expression didn't change. He said with a smile, "I believe that since this Kong Shinmu is a genius of the Dragon God clan, he will definitely put the overall interests of the Dragon God clan first. Everyone can snatch the hexagonal fiery crystals and even the necromancy demon fire flower in the center before splitting it." His words blocked Kong Shinmu's way of doing things. If Kong Shinmu did not join hands with them now, he was afraid that when he went back, he would bear the reputation of seeking personal gains and not putting the overall situation of the Dragon Gods first. This Luo Xiao is really powerful. As for the hexagonal fiery crystal, Kong Shinmu believed that the thing would most likely be handed over to the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land. What could Kong Shinmu and the others, who contributed in the middle, get? It was hard to say. The other side would only need to pay a little gold dragon coins. As for how many gold dragon coins they would give, it all depended on the mood of the other side. So if he really believed the other side's words of cooperation, he would be too naive. However, Kong Shinmu did not intend to fall out with the other side at this time. After all, they were all from the Dragon God clan. If he really fell out with them, it would be difficult to clean up. So, Kong Shinmu did not say much and directly flew toward Luo Xiao and the other 2. He took the 4 of them and kept a certain distance from the other side. He showed that he wanted to cooperate with the other side, but he did not show too much intimacy, leaving space for both sides to be vigilant. Kong Shinmu did not fully trust the other side, and the other side might not fully trust Kong Shinmu. So not too close could reassure both sides. What's the situation with this barrier? Is it impossible to break? Kong Shinmu nodded to Luo Xiao and asked. Luo Xiao did not know Kong Shinmu before, and now he did not have a very deep impression of Kong Shinmu. After looking at Kong Shinmu from head to toe, he nodded and said, "It can't be broken. Just now, we tried to attack the barrier together, but the barrier is still protected by supreme power. It is impossible for us to break it alone. But this supreme relic only allows cultivators at the 4th level of the Emperor stage to enter. We must have some special method to break the barrier. There were a total of 26 people at the scene, including Kong Shinmu's group of 5. At this moment, while everyone was vigilant of the members of other clans, they began to search the entire space. They had reason to suspect that there was a hidden mechanism in this space. As long as they found the mechanism and opened it, they could expose the hexagonal fiery crystal in the center. As for where the mechanism was, no one knew. In fact, they were not even sure if there was a mechanism in this space. Kong Shinmu listened to Luo Xiao and the other speculation and nodded to Luo Xiao. Then, he turned around and led the others to search the surrounding area for the mechanism. They did not find any obvious mechanism in the entire disc-shaped space. As Kong Shinmu searched, he observed the layers of barriers in the center. There are 18 barriers in total, and there are 18 hexagonal fiery crystals in each barrier. There is a dead soul's demonic fire flower in the center. It should be the most precious treasure, but the hexagonal fiery crystals cannot be ignored. They are all very strong materials. Kong Shinmu could feel that both the hexagonal fiery crystals and the dead soul's demonic fire flower were top-grade materials that contained the flame power of the heaven-deficient ice and fire demonic dragon. He looked around again. There were a total of 26 people at the scene, and they were from the 5 major clans. There were 8 people from the dragon gods, and 18 people from the other 4 major clans. 18? This number. Jiang Shenwu glanced at the 18 layers of barrier in the middle, and his heart couldn't help but sink. If the central barrier could not be broken by brute force, then there must be some other way. However, no one had discovered the existence of any mechanism. In other words, the opening method might be something that no one had thought of. If there were 18 people at the scene, what would happen? Would the 18 barriers be opened? Kong Shinmu did not know, but it was obvious that some people had already thought of this. After all, many people had far more experience in exploring the supreme relic than Kong Shinmu. Apart from Luo Xiao, there were 2 other powerhouses at the scene. They were Bai Feng from the ancient Phoenix clan and Wei Mingtian from the Sea God clan's shrimp tribe. The 2 of them kept looking at everyone at the scene. It was obvious that they were thinking about something. I'm afraid we have to make the first move. Chapter 47:10. The genius of the ancient Phoenix clan, Bai Feng, led 3 people. The genius of the Sea God clan, Wei Mingtian, led 4 people. In addition, there were 5 people from the Demon God clan, and 4 people from the Thousand-Winged Snake clan. There were 8 people from the Dragon God clan. If they wanted to reduce the total number of people in the field to 18, there were obviously only 2 choices. The first was to kill all the people from the Dragon God clan. The second was to kill the 8 people from the ancient Phoenix clan and the Thousand-Winged Snake clan. There were a total of 26 people. If 8 people died, then there would be 18 people left. And through observing the situation in the field, Jiang Shenwu quickly concluded that the people of the 4 major clans seemed to be joining forces to deal with the 8 people of the Dragon God clan together. It was not because the 8 people from the Dragon God clan were the weakest, but because it was the easiest for the 4 clans to join forces. It would be easier for the 4 clans to fight one person. Not to mention, Bai Feng of the ancient Phoenix clan was an experienced person who had explored the supreme ruins many times. As for Luo Xiao of the Dragon God clan, although he was not weak, he was not famous before. So, it was relatively easy to target the Dragon God clan. In terms of numbers, wouldn't it be easy for 18 people to fight 8 people? Suddenly, when a girl from the Gu family transformed into an ice attribute divine dragon and approached the 4 people from the ancient Phoenix clan, 2 of the female disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan suddenly swept toward the girl from the Gu family. The ancient Phoenix clan cultivators transformed into fire phoenixes, and they were all powerful existences of the fire attribute. At this moment, the 2 10,000 feet long fire phoenixes erupted like volcanoes. Terrifying power erupted from their bodies and swept toward the girl from the Gu family. The girl didn't expect that someone would suddenly attack her, and she panicked. But Jiang Shenwu had already been prepared for this. In fact, he had already expected this to happen even before the 2 ancient Phoenix clan disciples attacked. Thus, when the 2 ancient Phoenix clan disciples attacked, Jiang Shenwu didn't hesitate at all. The swallowing power of his entire body erupted. Sunset shadow flash. Kong Shinmu's black dragon body flickered and appeared in front of the Gu family's female dragon warrior. Then, he displayed the divine dragon tyrant body art's protective stance. The attacks of the two ancient Phoenix clan disciples crazily crashed into Kong Shinmu's black dragon form. This sudden change caused the situation on the battlefield to explode. On the other side, the cultivators of the Demon God clan, the Thousand-Winged Snake clan, and the Sea God clan were also attacking the dragon warriors of the dragon gods. On Kong Shinmu's side alone, Xiaobai was besieged by 3 experts of the Sea God clan. The other 2 Sea God tribe powerhouses, including the genius Wei Meng Tian, attacked the remaining 2 members of the Gu family. They wanted to kill them as soon as possible. But before everyone on the battlefield could achieve anything, a situation had already erupted on Kong Shinmu's side. He did not hesitate at all. First, he displayed the protective stance, blocking the first wave of attacks. Then, the power of swallowing directly swallowed the fire attribute power. Then, he released the offensive stance. Kong Shinmu knew that the situation was very tense. If he could not quickly deal with the 2 people in front of him, then the dragon gods would truly fall into a siege. Even he would not be able to save the situation. So he had to kill these 2 first. He first used the defensive stance to block the other's attack. This was almost easy for him. Although the other party was a genius of the ancient Phoenix clan, they were only 3rd-class disciples of the Holy Land. To Kong Shinmu, they were not a threat at all. Then, he swallowed the other party's power, increasing his own resistance to the fire attribute power to an extremely high degree. At this time, if he released the offensive stance, the other party would not be able to pose too much of a threat to Kong Shinmu. In this tense situation, Kong Shinmu's mind suddenly became clear. The advanced Holy Spirit Dragon martial technique of the 9th Extreme Roaring Dragon Explosion had reached a breakthrough at this moment. Originally, he had swallowed a lot of darkness attribute spiritual energy essence and stored it in the devouring space. At this moment, all of it crazily surged out, causing Kong Shinmu's 9th Extreme Roaring Dragon Explosion to finally break through and reach the 4th stage. 4 consecutive dark dragon breaths broke through the short-distance space and fell in front of the 2 female disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan who had attacked first. The 2 female disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan were shocked. What was going on? The dragon martial artist in front of them was 1 against 2, and he had blocked their attacks. Not only that, but he was also able to counterattack at an extremely fast speed. His counterattack was so powerful. The hairs on the 2 ancient Phoenix clan disciples stood up. They could feel that Kong Shinmu's 9th Extreme Roaring Dragon Explosion contained an incomparably terrifying explosive power. Most importantly, Kong Shinmu's talent seemed to contain some kind of unique power that made them feel a great threat. One of them wanted to dodge, but before he could do so, the dark dragon breath exploded right in front of him. Kong Shinmu's speed was too fast. It was so fast that the other party didn't even have time to react. The female disciple of the ancient Phoenix clan was hit by the 4th Extreme Roaring Dragon Explosion. Her fire phoenix body was instantly blown away by the power of darkness, and even her flaming wings were completely torn apart. The other person used a defensive method of fire. However, Kong Shinmu's Extreme Roaring Dragon Explosion was condensed from the power of devouring. Before it completely exploded, the power of devouring swallowed the power of the other party's defensive method by half. Finally, the Extreme Roaring Dragon Explosion erupted, directly blowing up the female disciple of the ancient Phoenix clan. That flaming phoenix body directly bloomed with endless blood. Kong Shinmu fought 1 against 2. With the fastest speed and the most ferocious and unstoppable momentum, he directly wounded the 2 female disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan. But how could the female disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan who were able to explore the supreme ruins die so easily? They were not the Dragon God clan. The Dragon God clan had too many quotas, so many people were more casual in their selection. For example, the Gu family. But these disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan were all battle-hardened individuals. Even if they encountered a 5th-level Emperor-level opponent, they might still have the strength to fight. Thus, although Kong Shinmu was strong, he wasn't able to kill them. He was only able to severely wound them for a moment. Kong Shinmu still wanted to chase after them. But at this time, a white phoenix suddenly appeared in front of Kong Shinmu. Ancient Phoenix clan genius, Bai Feng. Bai Feng stood in front of Kong Shinmu, preventing Kong Shinmu from killing them all. At the very least, he was able to stop Kong Shinmu for a moment. Ancient Phoenix Clan disciples, retreat. Bai Feng's voice was low. Then, the white flaming phoenix body rapidly carried the two injured female disciples of the ancient Phoenix Clan away into the distance. The situation on the battlefield instantly changed. Bai Feng obviously didn't want to sacrifice his own clansmen. The exploration of the Supreme Ruins had just begun. If there were any sacrifices, then the losses would be far too great. And most importantly, as Bai Feng saw Kong Shinmu's eruption just now, he clearly realized that even he wasn't necessarily Kong Shinmu's match. This level of strength was simply at the peak of the 4th level Emperor level. Chapter 47:11. Bai Feng retreated with the two female disciples of the ancient Phoenix Clan who were seriously injured and another young man from the ancient Phoenix Clan. The four of them quickly retreated and flew toward a passage in the distant space. Bai Feng's actions made it clear that the ancient Phoenix Clan would not participate in the fight for the dead demonic flame and the hexagonal flame crystals. After all, this was definitely not the only place in the entire Supreme Relic that had treasures. This had always been the norm. Based on Bai Feng's rich experience, this dead spirit demonic flame was not at the level of a core treasure in the Supreme Relic. The earlier they retreated, the earlier they could explore other places and try to obtain better treasures. Perhaps they could seize the opportunity earlier than the cultivators of the various clans present. As Bai Feng retreated with the people of the ancient Phoenix Clan, the situation suddenly changed. The cultivators of the various clans who had been besieging the dragon gods retreated immediately. The cultivators of the various clans gathered together and calmly scanned the surroundings. They were as calm and composed as they had been when they had attacked. Everyone was thinking about the current situation. With the retreat of the ancient Phoenix Clan, there were only 22 people left. If everyone's guess was correct, then as long as the last 4 people were eliminated, the remaining 18 people could try to open the 18 barriers. There were 5 people from the Demon God Clan, 5 people from the Sea God Clan, and only 4 people from the Thousand-Winged Snake Clan. At this moment, everyone was extremely nervous. But suddenly, Luo Xiao, a powerful disciple of the Dragon Gods, said with a smile, "Now we need to eliminate 4 people. I believe that no one wants to leave. In that case we have 4 clans. Why don't each of us exclude 1 person from our team? That's great. We can let them leave first and explore other areas. We don't need to determine the winner here. Everyone, what do you think?" As soon as Luo Xiao said this, everyone's expression changed slightly. This suggestion was quite good. Previously, there were 8 people missing, so there was a total of 5 clans present. They couldn't use this suggestion. But now it was just right. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes. He thought that Luo Xiao seemed to have a good idea. This idea could effectively prevent the cultivators of the dragon gods from being besieged again. Moreover, it was also accepted by everyone. Most importantly, they didn't know what would happen next. What if they didn't gather 18 people to open the 18 barriers? In this case, the Dragon God Clan had the most people, with 7 people, and the other races only had 3 and 4 people, and they could still occupy the most active position. It could be seen that Luo Zhao's suggestion was not bad. But we face a problem. The genius disciple of the Sea God Clan's shrimp tribe, Wei Mengtian, said calmly, "Our Sea God Clan doesn't really care. However, can your 3 clans choose the person who will be eliminated as soon as possible? The faster it is, the better it is for us. If you can't choose, our Sea God race doesn't mind helping you." The so-called help was to kill the other party. It was obvious that Wei Mengtian was urging the others to hurry up. In other words, he had agreed to Luo Zhao's suggestion. Since that's the case, let's each choose our own. Luo Xiao nodded and glanced at Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu thought that Luo Xiao would let one of the members of the Gu family leave. But soon, Luo Xiao looked at a disciple of the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land who had been following him. "You leave here first and follow the vanguard of our Dragon God Clan. You have a strong concealment ability, so you should be able to avoid the powerhouse of the ancient Phoenix Clan who just left. Be careful," Luo Xiao said in a low voice. He didn't hide his words from Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu nodded inwardly when he heard this. Luo Xiao did a good job. He asked the disciple of the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land to leave for safety reasons. It seemed that Luo Xiao didn't have any intention of targeting Kong Shinmu and the Gu family. Of course, this might be because Luo Xiao had just seen Kong Xinmu force back 2 female disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan with one move. That strength was absolutely extraordinary. It could be seen that Kong Xinmu's strength was probably above Luo Xiao's. Although Luo Xiao was very arrogant, he wasn't a fool. Of course, he could see who was strong and who was weak. Kong Xinmu could force back 4 people of the ancient Phoenix clan with his own strength. It could be seen that he was strong. Even Bai Feng was afraid of him. So Luo Xiao was also afraid of him. On one hand, he couldn't easily offend Kong Xinmu. On the other hand, Luo Xiao also hoped that the disciples of the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land would have a greater advantage in the exploration of the next ruins. As for the treasures in the first space, he wasn't sure yet. It was better to let one person leave first. It had to be said that Luo Xiao's idea was excellent. He and another disciple of the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land stayed here. Although they seemed weak, he was sure that Kong Xinmu wouldn't attack his compatriots of the Dragon God clan. Therefore, even if there were only 2 people left, they could still team up with Kong Xinmu and obtain the opportunity to obtain the hexagonal flame crystal. The Dragon God clan chose people. In addition, the Sea God clan, the Thousand-Winged Snake clan, and the Demon God clan also chose 1 person each and let them leave first. This wasn't to eliminate them, but to ensure their safety when they moved alone. The people chosen were all cultivators who were good at protecting their lives. The 4 of them left the passageway one after another and soon disappeared without a trace. As for what happened after they left, no one was able to see it. But in any case, there might be people waiting at the passage. If something happened here, they could immediately rush back. The premise was that they could still return to this space through that passage. Kong Xinmu felt that there seemed to be a barrier at the passage entrance that prevented the cultivators from coming back. In other words, once they went out, they wouldn't be able to help the people inside. Kong Xinmu shook his head and didn't think too much about it. Soon, he focused his attention and looked at the 18-layer crystal barrier in the center to see if there were any changes. Suddenly, the outermost layer of the crystal barrier flashed with light. One of the 18 hexagonal flame crystals suddenly burst out and swept toward a nearby Sea God clan cultivator. The power in the hexagonal flame crystal flowed directly into the huge Sea God clan totem behind him. The Sea God clan's fighting style was similar to that of the virtual human clan. They condensed a Sea God totem outside their bodies. The Emperor-level Sea God totem was extremely wide, as large as 10,000 feet, just like other Emperor-level inheritances. At this moment, the power in the hexagonal flame crystal flowed directly into it and burned it. Defend! Wei Mengtian of the Sea God clan immediately warned. The Sea God clan disciple also immediately displayed a strong defensive method. Chapter 47:12. Everyone was paying attention to it. The Sea God totem behind the Sea God clan disciple completely erupted at this moment. It was even more powerful than when he had launched a surprise attack on the Dragon God clan disciple. His Sea God totem was flashing with the luster of water attribute power. A total of 9 layers of defensive barriers were condensed inside and outside. At this moment, the power of the hexagonal fire crystal had completely poured into his body. Every hexagonal fire crystal exploded with 6 powerful attacks that landed on the defensive barrier outside the Sea God totem. Kong Xinmu observed carefully and guessed that this might be the opportunity to collect the hexagonal fire crystal. The 18 cultivators present could all get such an opportunity. Whether they could grasp it or not depended entirely on themselves. When the hexagonal fire crystal exploded with attacks, the genius Mighty Sky brought another Sea God clan disciple to protect the Sea God clan disciple who was being attacked, hoping that he would not be disturbed. Obviously, no one would disturb them at this moment, because soon it would be the others who would have to resist the attacks of the hexagonal fire crystal. If they attacked at this time, it would be obvious that they would offend everyone present, and the loss would outweigh the gain. Anyway, everyone would have a chance next, so there was no need to be anxious. Instead, at this time, everyone was carefully observing the attack of the hexagonal fire crystal, so that they could defend in the best way when it was their turn later. Every hexagonal fire crystal exploded with 6 attacks, and each attack broke a layer of the Sea God totem's defensive barrier. The Sea God clan disciple was under a lot of pressure. Just 2 hexagonal fire crystals were enough to make him somewhat unable to resist. Fortunately, after the second hexagonal fire crystal exploded, the Sea God clan disciple once again used a defensive method. However, Such an opportunity could not be repeated. After the Sea God clan disciple resisted the attacks of 3 hexagonal fire crystals, he could no longer hold on. The 3 hexagonal fire crystals launched 18 attacks together, completely breaking his defense. Immediately afterward, before he had the time to display his next offensive means, more attacks from the hexagonal fire crystals fell on his body. The terrifying flame power made his Sea God totem's shadow feel as if it had been burned by the soul, and it completely exploded. He resisted the attacks of 3 hexagonal fire crystals. Immediately after, everyone saw 3 of the 18 hexagonal crystals fly out from the barrier and stop in front of that person. All the remaining hexagonal fire crystals exploded at this moment, turning into demonic flames and disappearing without a trace. When everyone saw this scene, they had a rough idea in their minds. So that's how it is. The more hexagonal flame crystals one can block, the more hexagonal flame crystals one can obtain. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes. The Sea God disciple blocked the attack of the 3 hexagonal fire crystals, and the Sea God totem collapsed in the flames. Next, he obtained 3 hexagonal fire crystals. At this moment, the Sea God clan disciple was in a very bad state. He could not even condense the Sea God totem at this moment. He was in a rather weak state. You should leave. Wei Mengtian, the genius of the Sea God tribe, said to the disciple of the Sea God tribe. Yes. The disciple of the Sea God clan said weakly. Generally, it was relatively easy to leave this kind of supreme remnant. Of course, this was only possible under certain circumstances. For example, it was impossible to leave this disk space easily. He had to leave this space, head to some passageways, and activate some spatial transportation mechanisms to teleport him to the outside world. The disciple of the Sea God tribe flew rapidly towards the passageway he had come from, until he disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone regained their senses and ignored the disciple of the Sea God tribe who had left. The disciple of the Sea God tribe was the first to obtain 3 hexagonal fire crystals. It did not seem too difficult. However, if he lost his fighting strength and had to leave like the disciple of the Sea God tribe, it would be a little tragic. After the disciple of the Sea God tribe left, everyone separated from each other. A moment later, the second layer of the crystal barrier shattered and the hexagonal fire crystal launched a tyrannical attack at a disciple of the Demon God tribe. The disciple of the Demon God tribe immediately transformed into the body of a demon god. It was a scarlet leopard. The leopard had already gained experience from the previous encounter with the disciple of the Sea God tribe. At this moment, it erupted with its strongest fighting strength and condensed layers of blood-colored defensive barriers. Every layer was like a sea of blood, filled with the smell of blood. This level of power caused many people's expressions to change slightly. This fellow was obviously stronger than the disciple of the Sea God tribe. However, the disciple of the Demon God tribe could not withstand more hexagonal fire crystals. After the power of the 3 hexagonal fire crystals exploded, the defenses of the disciple of the Demon God tribe were completely broken. Immediately after, the attack of the hexagonal fire crystals caused him to suffer heavy injuries. The disciple of the Demon God tribe also obtained 3 hexagonal fire crystals, but he also lost his fighting strength. However, the disciple of the Demon God tribe did not choose to leave. Instead, he quickly recovered under the protection of the other disciples of the Demon God tribe. Obviously, the disciple of the Demon God tribe might not be good at defense, but he was very good at recovery. The inheritance power of the Scarlet Leopard allowed him to recover faster than the others, allowing him to continue exploring the Supreme Ruin. Next up was a disciple from the Thousand-Winged Serpent clan. This disciple's strength was slightly weaker than the other 2. He was only able to block the attack of 2 hexagonal fire crystals and obtained 2 hexagonal fire crystals in the end. Apart from the hexagonal fire crystals they obtained, the remaining hexagonal fire crystals all exploded and disappeared. The surrounding people felt it was a pity to see them lose so many hexagonal fire crystals. These hexagonal fire crystals were all super strong materials that had special effects when fused with battle weapons. However, they actually lost so many hexagonal fire crystals at this time. It was simply heartbreaking. However, there was nothing they could do in this situation. Next was a retainer of the Gu family, a dragon martial artist, who obtained this opportunity. Kong Shinmu's expression immediately turned serious. If he did not perform well at this time, he would really lose face in front of the other clans. Kong Shinmu's worries soon became reality. This fellow was definitely one of the weakest dragon martial artists who entered the Supreme Ruin this time. He couldn't even withstand the power of a single hexagonal flame crystal. However, this kid was quite clever. Seeing that he couldn't withstand it, he began to dodge the multiple attacks of the hexagonal flame crystal. Chapter 47:13. When the hexagonal fire crystals were about to hit him, the descendant of the Gu family's henchmen quickly flashed away. Relying on his extreme speed, he dodged the attacks of 2 hexagonal fire crystals. However, he was unable to dodge the third one. He was struck in the head, and the demonic flame power ignited his entire body. I got 2 hexagonal flaming crystals. Not bad. Kong Shinmu nodded to himself. Although it was a little embarrassing, it was not too embarrassing. Following that, the disciples of the Oceanic clan continued to be attacked by the hexagonal flaming crystals. Almost everyone took turns to be attacked by the hexagonal flaming crystals. Basically, everyone was able to resist the attacks of 2 to 4 hexagonal flaming crystals. It was obvious that those who could resist the attacks of 4 hexagonal flaming crystals were the best among the level 4 martial emperors. As for those who could only resist or dodge the attacks of 2 hexagonal flaming crystals, they were barely able to enter the supreme vestige. As it turned out, the descendants of the Gu family and the descendants of the Gu family that Kong Shinmu had brought along, although they did not perform too badly, they were still not as good as the others. Since the other 4 clans had a limited number of slots to enter, every one of them was an elite. It was normal that the dragon warriors of the Gu family could not compare to them. However, they had an advantage. They were following Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu had brought along Xiao Bai and 3 other descendants of the Gu family. Once they were injured, Kong Shinmu would immediately heal them with his devouring power. The effect was very obvious. The others were on the verge of death after receiving the hexagonal flaming crystals. However, the descendants of the Gu family recovered in an instant. This made the disciples of the other clans envious. It was so cool. Everyone cast their gazes over at Jiang Shenwu. All of them could sense how strong Jiang Shenwu was. Not only did he possess an extremely strong head-on combat strength, he even had such a strong supporting healing ability. This was something that caused everyone to sigh in amazement. At this moment, they all wanted to know how many hexagonal flaming crystals an expert like Kong Shinmu could resist. Soon, mighty Meng Tian was attacked by the hexagonal fire crystal. He was an outstanding genius of the younger generation of the Sea God clan. At this moment, he displayed his strength to the fullest. While constantly defending, he actually resisted the attack of 6 hexagonal fire crystals. In the end, the Sea Deity Race's shrimp tribe genius, Wei Mingtian, obtained 6 hexagonal flame crystals. Most importantly, he did not suffer any serious injuries. Of course, he would not leave immediately. In fact, he still had his peak battle strength. If he went all out, he might even be able to block the attack of 7 or even 8 hexagonal fire crystals. However, in order to preserve his battle strength, he took the initiative to give up the last 3. That method was to remove the Sea God totem and give up when the 7th attack came. His behavior caused the surrounding people to ponder in secret. This was the first time they had encountered a treasure in the Supreme Ruins. Once they lost their combat strength here, unless they had a super healing ability like Kong Shinmu, it would be very difficult for them to continue exploring the Supreme Ruins. Therefore, they were all thinking that if they were to reach their limits, they might be able to do the same as Wei Meng Tian. This also caused the cultivators of the various races to hold back when blocking the hexagonal fire crystals. They no longer used all their strength to block the hexagonal fire crystals. When they were about to reach their limits, they would learn from Wei Meng Tian and remove their sea god totem or demon god form. Soon, it was the turn of a dragon warrior from Luo Zhao's side. He was a disciple of the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land. That disciple was very conflicted. Logically speaking, Kong Shinmu had the ability to quickly recover. When he blocked the hexagonal fire crystals, he could go all out and attack with all his strength. Even if he was seriously injured, it did not matter. All he wanted was to obtain more hexagonal fire crystals. However, to be honest, he and Kong Shinmu did not belong to the same camp. Would Kong Shinmu heal him? He could also see that this kind of healing would definitely consume a lot of Kong Shinmu's energy. Kong Shinmu might not be willing to heal him. Therefore, he was very conflicted. Should he block the attack of the hexagonal fire crystals with all his strength? As long as he blocked the attack of the hexagonal fire crystals one more time, he could obtain one more hexagonal fire crystal. This was a very rare opportunity. Just now, many cultivators of the various races had at least one less hexagonal fire crystal in order to preserve their combat power. Although there was still a chance, it was really a pity to give up one or two hexagonal fire crystals just like that. Just as that disciple turned into a dragon warrior and began to block the attack of the hexagonal fire crystals, Kong Xinmu and Luo Xiao looked at each other and finally nodded. Therefore, Luo Xiao understood what Kong Xinmu meant. Luo Xiao said to his junior brother from the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land, "Do your best. Kong Xinmu will heal you later." For Kong Xinmu, Luo Xiao did not show any hostility towards him. No matter what the reason was, at this time, the dragon warriors of the dragon gods must definitely unite as one. Originally, the opportunity to explore the supreme relic was free for Kong Xinmu. If he could not make any contribution to the dragon gods as a whole, he would really be a little embarrassed. That guy suddenly worked very hard. All his strength was used to block the hexagonal fire crystals. In the end, he actually managed to withstand 5 attacks from the hexagonal flame crystal. This could be said to be an extremely terrifying strength, or it could be said that it was because he had used up all of his strength. When he finally returned with serious injuries, Jiang Shenwu directly healed him. Almost in just a moment, most of his injuries were healed, or at least the main part of his combat power was restored. "Thank you, senior brother Kong Xinmu." The male disciple was still very grateful to Kong Xinmu. This time, he could get 5 hexagonal fire crystals, which was a great contribution to him, and he would also get a lot of contribution points from the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land. Kong Xinmu shook his head. "We are all disciples of the dragon gods. This is what I should do." Soon, it was the turn of the last person from the demon god clan. After that, only the people of the dragon gods were left. Several members of the Gu family, as well as Xiao Bai and Kong Xinmu. "Xiao Bai, it's your turn. Do your best." Kong Xinmu reminded her secretly. Of course, Xiao Bai understood what Kong Xinmu meant. Others might be afraid, but she, Xiao Bai, did not need to be afraid of anything. She just needed to roll up her sleeves and block as many attacks as she could. It was a pity that Xiao Bai's defensive means were not too strong, and she did not practice many dragon-type martial arts techniques. At this time, she was a little overwhelmed. Chapter 47:14. Soon, the hexagonal flaming crystal's target was Xiao Bai. Kong Xinmu was a little puzzled. The hexagonal flaming crystal really picked its target one by one. At this time, the practitioners of the other 3 clans had already gotten what they wanted. Only the dragon martial artists were left. The genius of the Sea God clan, Wei Mengtian, was not in a hurry to leave with his remaining disciple. He wanted to see who would get the dead demonic fire in the center after the 18 barriers were eliminated. Simply put, Wei Mengtian wanted it, but he might not be able to get it just because he wanted it. Therefore, he wanted to see the situation. Before that, he could not break the rules. In other words, it was the dragon martial artists of the Dragon God clan who would resist the hexagonal flaming crystal's attack. He did not intend to make trouble, because it would be harmful to others, and there was a high probability that it would not benefit him. If they made trouble when the hexagonal flaming crystal attacked, who knew if the supreme relic would directly kick them out? If that happened, the loss would outweigh the gain. They wanted to obstruct the other clans as much as possible, but the conditions did not allow it. They had no choice. Therefore, they could only watch from the side. Seeing that everyone present was resisting the hexagonal flaming crystal, they could see that the others' combat strength was not bad. Perhaps it would come in handy when fighting for the dead demonic fire later. Know thyself and thy enemy, and you will never be defeated. Especially for Kong Xinmu, the practitioners of the other clans were very eager to know what kind of combat strength he had. In the battle just now, he had seriously injured 2 members of the ancient Phoenix clan. For them, it was too shocking and too fast. They could not see what kind of strength Kong Xinmu had. However, when resisting the hexagonal flaming crystal, he should be able to use his full strength, right? At this moment, it was Xiao Bai who attacked. She did not adopt the method of others, which was to passively defend. Instead, she took the initiative to attack. It was because she had no means of defense. At this moment, She kept using the ice-splitting heaven-breaking slash to bombard the power of the hexagonal flaming crystal. She had cultivated the ice-splitting heaven-breaking slash to the peak of the saint level and was even approaching the level of the extreme saint level. It was her main attack method in daily life. She was all too familiar with this move. She executed it as if it was her own arm, without any sluggishness. Although it was not as powerful as the Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the mountains and rivers high divine spirit dragon martial technique that she cultivated, it was faster to execute and consumed less energy. She could rely on this move to continue fighting. Her strength also surpassed that of a normal level 4 Emperor level cultivator. As a third-class disciple of the 5 Extreme Dark Ice Holy Land, her offensive strength was definitely not inferior to that of a 4th-class disciple like Luo Xiao. After all, Luo Xiao had barely reached the level of a 4th-class disciple, and he was not much stronger than Xiao Bai. She continued to unleash her power, blasting the first and second hexagonal fire crystals into pieces. Boundless fire energy swept across the battlefield, but she remained unmoved amidst the flames. She continued to unleash Ice Rend, and she accurately struck the hexagonal fire crystal that was coming at her. After she blasted the 4 hexagonal fire crystals into pieces, her attacks were somewhat unable to keep up. The hexagonal fire crystal's attacks became faster and faster, and even the Ice Rend was unable to block every single attack. Moreover, under the circumstances that she didn't use her defensive dragon martial technique, once she was hit by the hexagonal fire crystals, she would be heavily injured. There was no other possibility. Therefore, she could only unleash an even stronger attack. Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the mountains and rivers. This move had already begun to take shape when she executed it in the 5 Extreme Dark Ice City. Now, she was able to condense 49 Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the mountains and rivers. They revolved around her and continuously exploded under the attacks of the hexagonal fire crystals. The more Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the mountains and rivers, the stronger the Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the mountains and rivers. Moreover, each of the Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the mountains and rivers was very powerful, and it was completely capable of blocking a single attack from the hexagonal fire crystals. The 49 Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the attacks of 2 more hexagonal fire crystals for her. In the end, the Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the attacks of 2 more hexagonal fire crystals. Xiao Bai was unable to withstand the attacks of the hexagonal fire crystals, and she still only obtained 6 hexagonal fire crystals, just like the genius of the sea god race, Wei Meng Tian. However, Wei Meng Tian had taken the initiative to preserve his strength, while she had already unleashed all her power. She had even completely unleashed the power of the myriad dragon mystic Ice Blade Qi. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to obtain 6 hexagonal fire crystals. When she retreated, Kong Shinmu directly healed her injuries. He used his devouring power to devour the preserved beast core and devil core, and then turned them into the purest life essence, allowing Xiao Bai's injuries to recover at the fastest speed possible. After Xiao Bai was attacked, it was Luo Xiao's turn. Luo Xiao relied on the fact that he had Kong Shinmu behind him to resist the attacks with all his might. He constantly unleashed his powerful defensive abilities. In this situation, he didn't care about exposing his own methods. After all, every additional hexagonal fire crystal was an additional contribution. This was an excellent material for forging dragon weapons. Just now, his junior brother from the Starry Skystorm Holy Land had even studied it and discovered that this material could be directly integrated into a dragon weapon, adding some kind of flame energy to the dragon weapon. It was an extremely useful treasure. Therefore, Luo Xiao wanted to fight with all his might. Even if he could obtain 1 more hexagonal fire crystal, it would still be good. Kong Shinmu memorized all of Luo Xiao's fighting methods in his heart. On one hand, it was to guard against him. On the other hand, if they needed to cooperate in the future, it would be easier for him to understand Luo Xiao's methods better. In the end, Luo Xiao successfully resisted the attacks of the hexagonal fire crystal 7 times and obtained 7 hexagonal fire crystals. It seemed that his strength was similar to Wei Meng Tian's, but it was still unknown who was stronger. After all, Wei Meng Tian didn't use his full strength. At this time, Luo Xiao used his full strength and obtained 7 hexagonal fire crystals. This made the surrounding practitioners extremely envious. With Kong Shinmu around, these dragon martial artists of the Dragon God clan could actually do whatever they wanted. Wei Meng Tian was constantly observing Kong Shinmu. He knew that this guy was definitely going to be their next big enemy. He had to think of a way to deal with him. And Kong Shinmu was naturally also observing the surrounding situation, not giving anyone the slightest chance to take advantage of him. When Luo Xiao returned, Kong Shinmu used his devouring power to heal his injuries. Soon, his injuries were completely healed. Then, Kong Shinmu was the only one left on the battlefield who hadn't been attacked by the hexagonal fire crystal. Kong Shinmu transformed into his pitch-black divine dragon body. His eyes were solemn. Finally, it was his turn. Chapter 47:15. In the center, there was only one hexagonal fiery crystal barrier left. Kong Shinmu knew that 9 of the hexagonal fiery crystals would attack him, and the remaining 9 crystals would belong to Kong Shinmu based on the number of times he could block the attacks. Among the 17 people, Luo Xiao had the most crystals with 7, followed by Wei Meng Tian and Xiao Bai with 6. The rest only had 5 at most. Among them, the dragon gods fought especially hard because Kong Shinmu helped them heal. Even the descendants of the Gu family and their retainers got an average of 3 hexagonal fiery crystals in the end. It could be said that getting 1 more hexagonal fiery crystal was worth celebrating, because it meant that the cultivator's strength had increased by a level. Otherwise, like the few people from the other clans, they didn't dare to use their full strength and gave up when they couldn't hold on any longer. In this way, the demon gods, the thousand-winged snake, and the sea gods only got 3 hexagonal fiery crystals on average. At this moment, everyone looked at Kong Shinmu. All of them were extremely curious as they watched him transform into a pitch-black divine dragon. Divine dragon body technique, defense stance. Devouring power. Kong Shinmu didn't hesitate and displayed his strongest defense stance. Under the divine dragon tyrant body technique, a layer of extremely strong divine dragon tyrant body force condensed outside his body, forming a defensive barrier that enveloped Jiang Shenwu's divine dragon body. There was also the devouring power that turned into a black mist that filled the outside, enveloping Jiang Shenwu entirely. Soon, the hexagonal fiery crystals in the last crystal barrier swept toward Kong Shinmu. What surprised the surrounding people was that the hexagonal fiery crystals did not attack Kong Shinmu one by one, but in batches of 3. 3 hexagonal fire crystals immediately swept towards Kong Shinmu, erupting with a boundless and terrifying power of fire. The space around Kong Shinmu burned continuously, even raising the temperature of the entire area by several times. The extremely hot flame energy enveloped Kong Shinmu, but it was unable to break through Kong Shinmu's defensive barrier. Moreover, Kong Shinmu's devouring power continued to erupt, continuously devouring the flame energy. That's the heaven-deficient demonic ice and fire dragon's firepower. It's a little special compared to other fire powers. Once you touch it, it's hard to get rid of it. It will burn for a long time. Kong Shinmu thought. It seemed that it was necessary for him to cultivate the phoenix dance burning the 9th heaven to a higher level. The power of the fire attribute was, of course, the best effect would be displayed by the fire attribute dragon martial skill. The phoenix dance burning the 9th heaven had the characteristic of weakening the opponent's resistance to the fire attribute after they were hit by it. The heaven-deficient demonic ice and fire dragon's firepower would continue to burn the opponent for a long time. The combination of these 2 skills was undoubtedly extremely powerful. If Kong Shinmu used the combination of these 2 skills, he might be able to slowly burn through the opponent's defenses. Of course, all of this was assuming that Kong Shinmu could devour the heaven-deficient demonic ice and fire dragon's remains of inheritance. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to obtain such power. If he couldn't use it, everything would just be empty talk. Kong Shinmu continued to resist the attacks of the hexagonal fiery crystals and devour the heaven-deficient demonic ice and fire dragon's firepower. His resistance to this kind of firepower was becoming stronger and stronger. The fire attacks were becoming less and less of a threat to him. Even though the hexagonal fiery crystals continued to fly out and explode in midair, sweeping toward Kong Shinmu wasn't the least bit afraid. The explosion of the 3 hexagonal fiery crystals in the center caused a violent impact on Kong Shinmu. However, because he had already devoured the energy and gained a higher resistance, he wasn't injured at all. No one noticed what Kong Shinmu had done. It seemed that he had simply shrouded himself with the power of his talent. Then, Kong Shinmu was surrounded by a sea of fire. The hexagonal fiery crystals attacked Kong Shinmu in groups of 3. No one could see what was happening in the center of the sea of fire. All they could feel was the rising temperature. The sea of fire in the center seemed to be inextinguishable. It was a terrifying sight to behold. That's amazing. He's facing the attacks of 3 hexagonal fiery crystals at the same time. Will he be able to withstand it? Don't tell me he's already been burned to ashes in the sea of fire? A total of 6 hexagonal fiery crystals have already attacked him. I don't think he can hold on much longer. If he continues to endure, he will definitely exceed his limit. But that's not necessarily the case. This dragon warrior seems to be unusual. I can see that he's very confident in himself. Look, the last 3 hexagonal fiery crystals are attacking together. Everyone looked at the situation in the field nervously, and their eyes were filled with bewilderment and uncertainty. Kong Shinmu still isn't coming out? Still not giving up? If he doesn't give up, he will face the fierce attacks of the last 3 hexagonal fiery crystals. Many people guessed that Kong Shinmu should have reached his limit. Even if he was stronger than the others, he was facing the attacks of 3 hexagonal fiery crystals at the same time. The pressure would definitely be greater than the others. It was already amazing that he could withstand 2 such fierce attacks. As for why the 3 hexagonal fiery crystals were attacking Kong Shinmu at the same time, they didn't know. Many people thought that the reason was that this was the last layer of hexagonal fiery crystals, so it was more special. In any case, even Kong Shinmu didn't know why he was facing the attacks of 3 hexagonal fiery crystals at the same time. In fact, in terms of defense, he was as stable as an old dog. At this moment, the attacks of the last 3 hexagonal fiery crystals swept over. His resistance to the power of fire had reached a terrifying level. The power of the last 3 hexagonal fiery crystals exploded and bombarded him with an incomparably great momentum. While the momentum was great, Kong Shinmu's heart was incomparably calm. It was as if he wasn't the one facing the sea of fire. Finally, the power of the hexagonal fiery crystals completely erupted. In the eyes of the surrounding people, it was like the end of the world. The powerful and terrifying power engulfed Kong Shinmu. Raging flames constantly rolled out, causing the hearts of the surrounding people to tremble. This is too strong. Chapter 47:16. Previously, everyone had experienced the attack of the hexagonal fire crystal. Therefore, they were very clear that the hexagonal fire crystal was getting stronger and stronger. The burning effect could be accumulated and stacked. When one hexagonal fire crystal was attacked, the burning effect was not very obvious. However, when 2 hexagonal fire crystals were blocked, there would be a very strong burning effect, causing everyone's defense to become very weak. Therefore, when facing the attack of these hexagonal fire crystals, defending against 3 hexagonal fire crystals was already the limit. There were only a few experts in the crowd who could resist 6 or 7 hexagonal fire crystals. What's more, people like Kong Shinmu who blocked 3 hexagonal fire crystals at once had to endure the terrifying burning power. The most shocking thing was that Kong Shinmu did not seem to use any defensive means. It was as if he was using his divine dragon body to resist the attack of these hexagonal fire crystals. It was really incredible. Finally, the attack of the 3 hexagonal fire crystals descended. The whole place was a sea of fire. The temperature rose sharply. The terrifying power swept the whole place, causing everyone to take a few steps back. Everyone realized that the attack of the last 3 hexagonal fire crystals was much stronger than the previous 6. It was almost equivalent to the power of 2 attacks added together. Could Kong Shinmu really resist it? If it was someone else, even geniuses like Luo Xiao and Wei Mengtian, they might not be able to resist this move. Even if they had used this move at the beginning, they might not have been able to resist it even if they were in peak condition. Could Kong Shinmu do it? Kong Shinmu, who was in the sea of fire, still did not move. It was as if Kong Shinmu did not exist in the sea of fire. This caused the surrounding people to start guessing. Could this Kong Shinmu be dead? He died in there. He died from the beginning. That's why there is no movement. You must be joking. If he is really dead, who are the hexagonal fire crystals attacking? As long as we give up, those hexagonal flame crystals will stop attacking. If Jiang Shenwu is really dead, the attacks would have stopped long ago. That was before. Kong Shinmu should have been able to withstand the previous 2 attacks of 6 fire crystals. However, he might not be able to withstand the last attack. That's right. It's very likely that this last attack will directly kill this brat. Who knows? We should be able to see the results soon. Now that the sky is filled with flames, no one knows what is happening inside. Everyone focused and stayed away from the sea of fire in the middle of the map. Finally, as the final flames dissipated, everyone saw the body of the black dragon floating steadily in the air, just like how it had flown out at the beginning. The entire body of the black dragon was not tainted by the slightest bit of the power of the flames. The flames burned around him, but his entire body seemed to be isolated and was not affected at all. The flames around him continued to dissipate. Everyone who saw this scene felt incredulous from the depths of their minds. They wondered if they were dreaming. If it was said that Jiang Shenwu had withstood the 9 hexagonal flame crystals, they would feel that it was inconceivable, but they would also click their tongues in wonder, feeling that Jiang Shenwu was too strong. However, Kong Shinmu was not injured at all. He had resisted the attack of all 9 hexagonal fire crystals. This was simply too terrifying. Under this shocking scene, everyone momentarily forgot to breathe as they stared blankly at Jiang Shenwu in the arena. Xiao Bai was the only one who had confidence in Kong Shinmu's strength. At this moment, this was not unexpected at all. When she saw Kong Shinmu emerge from the flames unscathed, a knowing smile appeared on her beautiful face. At the same time, everyone could see that the last layer of the crystal barrier around the necromancy demonic flame had crumbled. 9 of the 18 hexagonal fire crystals in the barrier flew out to attack Kong Shinmu, while the remaining 9 flew towards Kong Shinmu one after another. This was a declaration that these 9 crystals had become Kong Shinmu's possessions and belonged to Kong Shinmu from now on. This harvest was more than 3 times more than what everyone else had obtained. Moreover, many people present knew that Kong Shinmu only needed to hand over 10% of his harvest to the Gu family. The rest would be his own. In other words, Kong Shinmu owned 8 hexagonal fire crystals. Wasn't this too awesome for everyone present? Every hexagonal fire crystal could be integrated into a battle weapon of any race to increase its power. It could increase the destructive power of a battle weapon by at least 30% to 50%. Kong Shinmu also had 8 of them. These 8 crystals couldn't all be integrated into a single battle weapon, but their value was still heaven-defying. Kong Shinmu made a rough estimate. If these hexagonal fire crystals were to be sold in the Holy Lands of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice, each one should be able to sell for about 3,000 gold dragon coins. 8 hexagonal fire crystals added together would be more than 20,000 gold dragon coins. This was a huge windfall for him. One had to know that the Holy Lands of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice had only rewarded him with cultivation materials worth 1,000 gold dragon coins for him to become a 5th-class disciple. Now, Kong Shinmu actually received 20 times the reward. Of course, Kong Shinmu might not sell all of these hexagonal fire crystals. Ordinary divine dragon weapons wouldn't be able to match a treasure of this level. They were basically all supreme god-level experts. Only their transcendent god weapons were worthy of such a treasure. Otherwise, it would be a waste of a heavenly treasure. In fact, Kong Shinmu also thought so. In any case, he didn't have any divine dragon weapons that could match a divine weapon like this. However, that didn't stop him from keeping a few for himself. When he had a powerful divine dragon weapon in the future, he could integrate it into his own. In any case, he could be considered rich now. When he obtained a top-grade divine dragon weapon, he could directly integrate it into his own to increase his battle power. Almost no one else would do such a thing. Every hexagonal fire crystal was priceless. How could they be willing to part with it? Even if they could be used to strengthen themselves, for many people, it was not comparable to the contribution points they could obtain by handing them in. If they used them to exchange for other cultivation resources, it was very likely that their improvement would be greater. This was why the various races would use contribution points to exchange for items obtained by cultivators from the Supreme Ruins. Chapter 47-17. It was obvious that very few people would use the hexagonal fiery crystals on their own, except for Kong Shinmu. Or perhaps, except for when they were in a life-and-death situation in the Supreme Relic, they had no choice but to forcefully integrate the crystals into their own weapons. In that case, it would be easier for them to leave this place alive. Once they died, there would be nothing left. Of course, this was a story for another time. At that moment, Everyone watched as the 9 hexagonal fiery crystals flew towards Kong Shinmu and were put away by Kong Shinmu one by one. They were filled with jealousy and hatred, but they did not envy him for too long. This was because they were all focused on the dead demonic fire in the center. The dead demonic fire was the most important treasure here. Everyone was sharpening their knives, planning to snatch the undead demonic fire. It should be known that the 18 layers of barriers around them had disappeared. The undead demonic fire was completely revealed in front of everyone. Endless strange firepower appeared in front of them. There were no more barriers between them and the dead demonic fire. However, just as Wei Mingtian and the others were about to snatch the dead demonic fire, they realized that their surroundings were suddenly blocked by a fire energy barrier. This fire energy barrier was like a wall of the wisps. It suddenly appeared without any warning. It was a white flame that was the same color as the dead demonic fire. The dead demonic fire blocked everyone's way. Then, everyone watched as the dead demonic fire flew towards Kong Shinmu. It kept shrinking until it turned into a ring and flew in front of Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu felt like he had just woken up from a dream. What's going on? So this dead demonic fire is actually the power of a ring? Most importantly, the dead demonic fire ring actually flew directly towards him. Is it because I performed the best during the defense just now? Just as Kong Shinmu was thinking about this, he suddenly realized that the dead demonic fire ring did not seem to have any intention of handing it over to him. Instead, it floated in front of him. He wanted to stretch out his hand to put away the dead demonic fire ring, but the dead demonic fire ring was circling in the air, avoiding his dragon claws. What's going on? Kong Shinmu was dumbfounded. The necromancy demonic fire ring was revolving around him, but he couldn't get it. In the next moment, he discovered that all the flame barriers around him had dissipated. The effect of the flame barrier was to let everyone clearly see that the necromancy demon fire ring had turned into a ring and arrived in front of Kong Shinmu. Everyone immediately stared at Kong Shinmu and the dead spirit demon fire ring in front of him. Is he trying to lure others over to snatch it? I can't get the necromancy devil fire ring? Kong Shinmu was a little puzzled. This was too much of a scam. This was purely using him, the strongest person, as a target. If everyone attacked Kong Shinmu at the same time, Kong Shinmu wouldn't be able to withstand it no matter how strong he was. After all, compared to many of the geniuses present, he didn't have an advantage in terms of cultivation level. He only had an advantage in terms of the nature of power. He could rely on his devouring power to fight one-on-one with Wei Mengtian or Luo Xiao. He could even fight both of them at the same time. It wouldn't be a big problem. However, if he were to face everyone present, Kong Shinmu definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it and would definitely die. Although his devouring power could devour all kinds of power, the devouring speed was limited. If he were to face everyone at the same time, he could only devour a part of the power. If the remaining part was too strong and his body-refining dragon-type martial technique couldn't withstand it, he would die. Moreover, it was very likely that he would die in a single move. Sunset Shadow Flowing Flash. When Kong Shinmu saw that all the flame barriers around him had dissipated, he immediately executed the Sunset Shadow Flowing Flash and shuttled through the void to an empty space in the distance. He wanted to temporarily escape from the encirclement. It was too dangerous for such a person to become a target in the center. However, he soon discovered that the dead spirit demon fire ring had actually shuttled through the void with him. This gave him a big fright. Seeing that the surrounding cultivators from various races were suddenly sweeping towards him, he quickly turned his head and shuttled towards the place where Xiaobai was. It was definitely unrealistic for him to face so many people alone. Moreover, it was also unrealistic for him to escape with the dead spirit demon fire ring alone. Therefore, he could only choose to return to Xiaobai's side and let Xiaobai and the 3 members of the Gu family join forces to deal with the surrounding people. Of course, the 3 members of the Gu family and Xiaobai might not be able to withstand the attacks of everyone. Therefore, the current situation was mainly dependent on the attitude of Luo Xiao and the other disciple of the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land. If they helped Kong Shinmu, then Kong Shinmu and the others still had the possibility of resisting the joint attack of the 3 clans. If Luo Xiao and the others also wanted to seize the dead spirit demon fire ring, then everything would become very difficult. It wasn't that Kong Shinmu didn't want to directly escape with Xiaobai and the 3 members of the Gu family. The key was that there was already a genius expert from the demon god race and a genius expert from the sea god race blocking the exit. If Kong Shinmu wanted to break through, he would inevitably be blocked by the other side. Moreover, Kong Shinmu's explosive power might not be able to instantly kill the two people. If he delayed for even a moment, the various races behind him would catch up, and he would have nowhere to escape. Moreover, Kong Shinmu noticed that there were several people present who had some understanding of the Tao of space. Moreover, they had all cultivated some Void Dragon martial skills, including the two geniuses from the demon god race. Therefore, even if Kong Shinmu wanted to escape with his people, it might not be possible. Of course, the most important thing was the Dead Spirit Demon Fire Ring. This ring didn't belong to Kong Shinmu yet, but it was following Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu was thinking about a question. What exactly could make the Dead Spirit Demon Fire Ring belong to him? This was something Kong Shinmu didn't know at the moment. However, if he escaped from this space, the Dead Spirit Demon Fire Ring wouldn't follow him out of this space. Then, he would lose the opportunity to obtain this treasure. Therefore, Kong Shinmu didn't want to leave this space for the time being. At the very least, he had to ensure that he obtained the Dead Spirit Demon Fire Ring. Kong Shinmu, I'll block Wei Mengtian for you. At this moment, Luo Xiao suddenly flew over and directly flew towards the Sea God Race's Shrimp Tribe's genius, Wei Mengtian. He brought along another disciple from the Starry Sky Holy Land, planning to fight 2 against 1 to block Wei Mengtian. As for the Thousand-Winged Snake Tribe and the Demon God Race, there were a total of 6 people left. They directly surrounded Kong Shinmu's group of 5. Chapter 47:18. Under such circumstances, the Thousand-Winged Snake Race's physique was extremely strong. When they had blocked the attack of the hexagonal fire crystal, they had relied on their winged snake form at most. This was similar to a dragon martial artist who cultivated a dragon-type martial technique. The 3,000 winged snake race experts and the 3 demon god race experts surrounded Kong Shinmu's group of 5. I'll fight the 3 of you alone. Stop the rest of them. Kong Shinmu shouted. In this vast underground space, Kong Shinmu, Xiao Bai, and the 3 members of the Gu family were surrounded by the Thousand-Winged Snake Race and the Demon God Race. The 3 from the Thousand-Winged Snake Race transformed into their winged snake forms, while the 3 members of the Demon God Race transformed into their respective demon god bodies. 2 of them were striped tigers and 1 was a dark snake demon. After blocking the hexagonal fire crystal, Kong Shinmu had a basic understanding of the abilities of these 6 fellows. In order to obtain more hexagonal fire crystals, they basically didn't hold anything back. Whether it was in terms of defense or offense, they had pretty much exposed all their methods unless they were willing to take 1 less hexagonal fire crystal to hide their strength. Truth be told, there was not much point in hiding his strength in this situation. He might as well take 1 more hexagon flame crystal. It would be worth it to preserve his strength in order to avoid getting seriously injured. However, taking 1 less hexagon flame crystal was pointless. Therefore, Kong Shinmu had a basic understanding of their strength. As for the other party's understanding of Kong Shinmu's strength was very little. Therefore, Kong Shinmu planned to fight the 3 alone. The remaining 3 people would be left to Xiao Bai and the others. Xiao Bai and the 3 members of the Gu family added up to a total of 4 people. Xiao Bai would definitely have some strength left to deal with one of them. As for the 3 members of the Gu family, although their overall strength was slightly weaker, it shouldn't be too much of a problem for them to deal with the remaining 2. Now, everyone wanted to obtain the Death Demon Fire Ring, which was quite disadvantageous to Kong Shinmu. Everyone's target was him. At this moment, Kong Shinmu directly flew forward and faced the 3 genius experts of the Thousand-Winged Snake Clan. This caused the 3,000-Winged Snake Clan's experts to be overjoyed. This meant that they were closer to the Necromancy Demonic Fire Ring. So long as they were able to suppress Kong Shinmu, they would have a chance to obtain the Necromancy Demonic Fire Ring. Although they were somewhat fearful of Kong Shinmu's battle prowess, they decided to be careful and focus on defense. At the very least, they had to stall Kong Shinmu. Before, Kong Shinmu had forced back the 2 female disciples of the ancient Phoenix clan in a single move. Moreover, he had also blocked the 9 hexagonal fire crystals. This already caused them to be extremely vigilant. It was impossible for them to deal with Kong Shinmu like they usually did. Kong Shinmu was able to resist the attack of the 9 hexagonal fire crystals. It was obvious that his defensive abilities were terrifying. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they might not be able to kill Kong Shinmu. Thus, they had to be careful and wait for an opportunity. Of the geniuses that came to explore these unparalleled ruins, which one of them wasn't a sinister and cunning individual? They were experienced, and it was impossible for them to rush up and die. Instead, they planned to delay for time. The main reason they delayed for time was to wait for the 3 geniuses of the demon god race to kill or severely wound Xiao Bai and the others. If that happened, then the 3,000 winged snake clan geniuses would have a higher chance of suppressing Kong Shinmu and obtaining the death demon fire ring. As for the 3 geniuses of the demon god race, they directly rushed towards Xiao Bai and the others. They were a bit far from the death demon fire ring, but they didn't care. After all, as long as they suppressed Xiao Bai and the others, they could use this opportunity to threaten Kong Shinmu into handing over the death demon fire ring. At this time, when exploring the unparalleled ruins, the various races would do their utmost to avoid losses. They believed that Kong Shinmu wouldn't sit idly by and watch Xiao Bai and the others be killed for a death demon fire ring. The battle was about to begin. A terrifying strength erupted. Xiao Bai directly faced the black snake demon god race genius alone. The power of ice erupted from her entire body with an incomparably terrifying aura. Xiao Bai's strength was formidable to begin with. She was a 3rd-grade disciple. Although she was inferior to 4th-grade disciples like Luo Xiao and Yu Jingxian, the difference wasn't too great. As for the black snake demon god race genius that she faced, he was also equivalent to a 3rd-grade disciple. However, he shouldn't be as strong as Xiao Bai. 10,000 Dragon Mystic Ice Blade Qi. The tyrannical Ice Blade Light Dragon weapon appeared on the battlefield. This was the weakest human-grade holy spiritual dragon weapon. However, it was already compatible with Xiao Bai's strength. She could erupt with its full power. It was no less than an Earth-grade holy spiritual dragon weapon that she had just obtained. With the help of the 10,000 Dragon Mystic Ice Blade Qi, Xiao Bai's Ice-Splitting Sky Slash erupted in an instant. Ice-Splitting Sky Slash. 1000 Slash. This was a variant of the Ice-Splitting Sky Slash. It required Xiao Bai to condense several ice-splitting sky slashes at an extremely fast speed. This was extremely difficult. Every time she condensed one ice-splitting sky slash, the requirement for her control of the strength in her body increased exponentially. Now, she could condense a total of 7 ice-splitting sky slashes at once. This was a trump card that she had never used before. Most importantly, the speed at which she performed the ice-splitting sky slash was too fast. No one could react in time, including the black snake demon god race genius. Then, the ice-splitting sky slash swept across and directly chopped the black snake demon god race genius into ice fragments. Xiao Bai immediately became vigilant. The other party couldn't have been killed so easily. This situation must be a trap. As expected, the black snake demon god race genius that had been chopped into ice fragments swept toward Xiao Bai. When it neared her, it exploded. This black snake demon god race genius was actually a clone. After the clone was killed, it actually exploded. Xiao Bai's entire body was blasted away by the force of the explosion. She was sent flying backward. Suddenly, she felt a terrifying threat. She instantly prepared all the ice chi in her body. Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the mountains and rivers. This high-grade Holy Spirit Dragon martial technique erupted. A total of 49 Ice Dragon Pagoda condensed around her body and pressed forward. A dark force appeared around her body and tried to sneak up on her. It was from the Black Snake Demon God Race genius. However, the power of the Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing mountains and rivers was too terrifying. It directly suppressed the waves of dark force and caused it to explode. Endless black smoke spread out in all directions. At this moment, the 3 juniors of the Gu family encountered the 2 Demon God Race geniuses. They both possessed the power of the Striped Tiger bloodline. The characteristic of the Striped Tiger bloodline was ferocious, extremely ferocious. The power that erupted from the 2 of them forced the 3 juniors of the Gu family to retreat again and again. After almost 3 moves, they couldn't withstand it anymore. This was the 3 of them facing 2 Demon God Race geniuses. Chapter 47:19. The 3 juniors of the Gu family were in a difficult battle. If they failed now, only death awaited them. They knew this very well. It could be said that they had never experienced such a high-intensity and cruel battle since birth. It had always been a battle of trial. But now, it was a battle of life and death. Without any experience, they were extremely nervous, trembling from head to toe. Especially since the three of them combined were not as strong as the two geniuses of the demon god clan, the pressure on them was even greater. They fought and retreated, moving further and further away from Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai. They had no choice. Facing the strong attacks of the two geniuses of the demon god clan, they could only retreat. No wonder the dragon god clan is being attacked by the four clans. He, the juniors of the dragon god clan are getting weaker with each generation. That's right. They are geniuses selected to explore the supreme relic, but they only have this little combat strength. How disappointing. If you're disappointed, then so be it. But isn't this exactly what we wanted? As long as we kill these guys, we can find a way to get the dead demonic fire ring. The dead demonic fire ring must be in our hands. It will definitely belong to our demon god clan. The two geniuses of the demon god clan were still in the mood to chat while attacking the three juniors of the Gu family. But in fact, they had already used all their strength. They hoped to kill the three juniors of the Gu family as soon as possible so that they could join forces with the three geniuses of the Thousand-Winged Snake clan to deal with Kong Xinmu. They found that the three geniuses of the Thousand-Winged Snake clan and Kong Xinmu were confronting each other. Neither side was fighting fiercely. The main reason was that the three geniuses of the Thousand-Winged Snake clan were afraid of Kong Xinmu, so they didn't give Kong Xinmu a chance. They just surrounded Kong Xinmu and didn't let him go to the other side of the battlefield. On the other side, the genius of the Dragon God clan, Luo Xiao, led another disciple of the Starry Sky Holy Land. 2 against 1, they successfully stalled the genius of the Sea God clan, Wei Mengtian. Wei Mengtian condensed the image of the Sea God totem. It was a blood-red lobster totem with an incomparably terrifying and bloody aura. Even though he was fighting against 2 opponents at the same time, he was not at a disadvantage at all. If one of them had not been Luo Xiao, the 2 from the Dragon God clan would have been defeated. Even Luo Xiao was struggling to resist Wei Mengtian's fierce attacks. It could be seen that the overall situation of the Dragon God clan was in a precarious situation. This was because there was a genius from the Demon God clan and a genius from the Sea God clan guarding the exit of the passageway and did not participate in the battle. However, they also had to guard the exit. Otherwise, if Kong Xinmu took the Necromancer demonic fire ring and directly teleported to the exit, he would be able to escape from this space. This kind of thing would absolutely not be allowed to happen by the 3 clans. For the 3 clans, their breakthrough lay in the younger generation of the Gu family. As for Kong Xinmu, just when everyone was paying attention to when the younger generation of the Gu family would be defeated, a sudden change occurred on the battlefield. Kong Xinmu, who had been besieged by the 3 geniuses of the Thousand-Winged Snake clan, suddenly disappeared from the battlefield. The 3 geniuses of the Thousand-Winged Snake clan were instantly stunned. Immediately after, they frantically warned their allies around them. "Be careful, this Kong Xinmu has disappeared. We can't find any trace of him." This matter was serious. Kong Xinmu had actually suddenly disappeared, and the 3 geniuses of the Thousand-Winged Snake clan couldn't find any trace of him. If he appeared on the battlefield in another direction and launched a sneak attack, it would be an extremely terrifying matter. At the same time that they warned Kong Xinmu, he did not give the others any time to react or prepare at all. He quickly concealed himself with the Nightmare Ink Beast's ability, and his opponents couldn't find any trace of him for a while. In reality, if they spent a little more time, they could still see his existence. However, Kong Xinmu did not give them this time. The power to travel through space erupted, and the Void Dragon's martial technique, the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash, brought Kong Xinmu directly to a place not far away from Xiao Bai. 9th Stage Extreme Down Nightmare Dragon Burst. A total of 4 dark dragon breaths appeared beside the Black Snake Monstrous God Clan genius, who was restraining Whitey, and exploded with a loud bang. The Black Snake Clan's genius was proficient in concealment and sneak attacks. At this time, he was confronting Xiao Bai, and he had not revealed himself. However, Kong Xinmu's Nightmare Ink Beast's ability was able to detect his exact location. Previously, he had not warned Xiao Bai about the location of the Black Snake Clan's genius, mainly because he had warned her. She might not be able to kill him in one strike, and she might even alert him. But now, Jiang Xinwu had personally appeared. Furthermore, He had unleashed the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Art's powerful offensive stance. With the most terrifying might, he had directly unleashed the 9th stage Extreme Dao Horn Dragon Burst, this terrifying high-grade Divine Spirit Dragon Martial technique. This was the strongest dragon martial technique that the Dragon Emperor could cultivate at this stage. Coupled with the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Art's powerful offensive stance, Kong Shinmu's 4 Darkness Dragon Breaths directly caused the Black Snake Clan's genius to be dumbfounded on the spot. He did not expect Kong Shinmu to suddenly make a move. Were those 3,000 winged Snake Clan people trash? They actually failed to keep an eye on this Kong Shinmu and let him escape. Without a doubt, he was directly drowned in the darkness of the 4 Darkness Dragon Breaths before he could even react. Violent energy poured out, as if it wanted to shatter the entire space. This sudden turn of events caused everyone present to be stupefied. Oh no! The Demon God Clan and the Sea God Clan genius who were guarding the exit wanted to rush over to help at the first moment. Because an accident had occurred in the battle, they had to salvage the situation. Otherwise, the entire situation would instantly collapse. But before they could rush over to where Kong Shinmu was, the Black Snake Clan genius had already been killed by Kong Shinmu in one move. This fellow was originally good at sneak attacks, but not head-on battles, so his defense was worrisome. Kong Shinmu had targeted this weakness, so he chose to sneak attack him and kill him in one move. Then, Kong Shinmu instantly left the spot and disappeared from everyone's sight once again. Xiaobai turned around and used the Ice Dragon Pagoda, suppressing the mountains and rivers, slightly restraining the 3,000 winged Snake Clan geniuses who had just reacted. At this time, Kong Shinmu had already flashed to the side of the 3 Gu family juniors, planning to attack the 2 Demon God Clan geniuses. Kong Shinmu's movements were swift, but the 2 Demon God Clan geniuses had already reacted. Each of them displayed a powerful defensive technique and retreated at the same time, planning to meet up with the other Demon God Clan member at the exit of the passage. Now that one Demon God Clan member had died, the sudden change in the situation made them extremely cautious. Under such circumstances, Kong Shinmu could not kill them in one go, so he stopped and did not pursue them. There was no point in chasing after them. In any case, he could not kill them and could not change the current situation. Therefore, he directly asked Xiao Bai and the 3 Gu family juniors to meet up with him. The 5 of them met up. Chapter 47:20. Kong Shinmu's action caused everyone's expression to change. Kong Shinmu wanted to escape with his men. This was out of everyone's expectations, but in fact, after thinking about it carefully, Jiang Shenwu could only take this path now. Could it be that he still wanted to kill all the practitioners from the various clans present? That was completely unrealistic. Therefore, when Kong Shinmu brought his men to the exit of the tunnel, broke through the void, and appeared not far away from the exit, everyone reacted. The first to react were the 2 striped tiger geniuses from the Demon God Clan. The striped tiger bloodline burst forth, sweeping towards the exit of the passageway at the first instant. They had also cultivated some sort of demonic martial skill that allowed them to travel through the void. Furthermore, they each executed their own demonic martial skill, allowing them to reach the exit of the passageway before Jiang Shenwu, who was bringing the 4 of them along. They tried to stop Kong Shinmu. As long as they could stop him for a while, the others would be able to catch up. However, they did not expect that this was all part of Kong Shinmu's plan. He did not plan to escape at all, because the Dead Soul's demonic fire ring was not his yet. Therefore, he would definitely continue to fight in this tunnel until he achieved the conditions to make the Dead Soul's demonic fire ring his. Therefore, he shuttled to the exit with the intention of separating his opponents. Now that the 2 striped tiger geniuses of the demonic clan had taken action and arrived in front of him first, Jiang Shenwu could not be blamed for this. Let's join forces and kill them. Kong Shinmu lowered his voice and immediately released his most terrifying power. This time, not only did Kong Shinmu use the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Art to attack, but he also used the Wind Snow Dragon Stone. Although it was not a very powerful holy spiritual dragon weapon, it gave Kong Shinmu the greatest boost in power. At the same time, Xiao Bai and Kong Shinmu attacked together. Her Ice Dragon Pagoda suppressing the mountains and rivers had not displayed its strongest power before. Until this moment, Xiao Bai unleashed her full strength, directly condensing 99 Ice Dragon Pagodas. Originally, when she first came to the Dragon God Clan's macro world, she could condense 30 ice dragon towers. However, after she broke through the realm and the grade of the divine dragon's inheritance essence blood, she consolidated her strength and could condense 49 ice dragon towers. Before coming to the supreme ruins, she had absorbed all the ice-type spiritual energy resources provided by the 5 extremes dark ice holy land. The amount of resources was much less than what Kong Shinmu had, so she had finished absorbing them in 7 days. The effect of this move was to allow her to break through the high-level Holy Spirit Dragon's 10,000 pagoda-suppressing mountains and rivers to the level of being able to condense 99 ice dragon pagodas. If she had condensed 99 ice dragon pagodas previously, she would have been able to obtain 1 or 2 more hexagonal fire crystals. However, that would have been enough for them to be prepared. Now, she suddenly unleashed her full power, which was completely unexpected to the 2 striped tiger demonic god race geniuses. What? It's actually 99 ice dragon towers. How is this possible? She actually did not use her full strength just now. She can actually resist the temptation of the hexagonal fire crystal treasure? This was an item worth 3,000 gold dragon coins. Each hexagonal fire crystal treasure was equivalent to 3 high-level Holy Spirit Dragon's martial techniques. One could imagine how tempting it was, but Xueqi had actually given up on it. It was obvious that Xueqi had already made some preparations to obtain the more precious necromancy demon fire ring. In fact, there were others who were also hiding, such as the genius of the sea god race's shrimp tribe, Wei Mengtian. However, Wei Mengtian was very far from the exit of the passageway, so he definitely wouldn't be able to rescue the 2 striped tiger demonic god race geniuses in time. Moreover, even if Wei Mengtian could pay a price to rescue them, he wouldn't do it. Therefore, when Xueqi and Kong Shinmu joined forces, the 2 striped tiger demonic god race geniuses were completely unable to guard against them. At this moment, Kong Shinmu's blizzard dragonstone directly erupted with a blizzard storm that swept across the entire area, blocking the striped tiger demonic god race genius who was further away. Then, the striped tiger demonic god race genius who was closer to the striped tiger demonic god race genius suffered the most terrifying attacks from Kong Shinmu and Xueqi. 99 ice dragon pagodas, accompanied by 4 dark dragon breaths, exploded in a terrifying manner around the 3,000-foot-long striped tiger. The unimaginable destructive power instantly destroyed the striped tiger's body. At the same time, how could the 3 Gu family juniors not know what to do? In an instant, they erupted with all their strength and launched an attack at the striped tiger demonic god race genius. The terrifying power caused everyone present to tremble. The striped tiger demonic god race genius immediately used his most powerful defensive technique. Unfortunately, he had already revealed how powerful his defensive technique was. Moreover, he had yet to fully recover from the injuries he suffered when he was attacked by the hexagonal fire crystal. At this moment, he was unable to withstand the attack. Behind him, although the attacks of the 3 Gu family juniors were not strong, they were like the last straw that broke the camel's back. They finally broke through the striped tiger demonic god race genius defense. At this moment, the power of the devouring power suddenly erupted. Kong Shinmu's pitch-black devouring power directly enveloped that fellow's entire body. While he was injured by the other attacks, the devouring power directly invaded his body. This time, Kong Shinmu did not devour the essence of his life, flesh, and blood. Instead, he began to devour the demonic power in his body. While he was seriously injured and extremely weak, Kong Shinmu's devouring power was completely unhindered. In just a few breaths, all the power in his body had been devoured. The striped tiger demonic god race genius still wanted to struggle, but he suddenly felt that his strength was suddenly gone. He could not summon any strength at all. There was a terrifying power in his body that was devouring all his strength, rendering him unable to use any of his techniques. This made the striped tiger demonic god race genius extremely terrified. However, he was so weak that he could not even roar. In the end, Kong Shinmu unleashed another wave of dark dragon breath light explosion. 4 dark light explosions exploded, completely killing the striped tiger demonic god race genius. Kong Shinmu conveniently took away the demonic core in his body. At the same time, he raised his hand and unleashed another 9 ultimate roaring dragon burst at the striped tiger demonic god race genius who was slightly further away. The striped tiger demonic god race genius did not hesitate at all. He turned around and fled. This fellow was so scared that he wet his pants. He had just planned to delay time with his companions. As long as they could delay Kong Shinmu, the others behind would rush over and stop Kong Shinmu. He did not expect Xiao Bai to have hidden a trick up her sleeve. Chapter 47-21. The striped tiger monstrous god clan genius had wanted to help his comrade, but his actions had been hindered by the snowstorm. He had missed such a short moment and could only watch as his comrade was killed by Kong Shinmu's group of 5. Eventually, his body exploded and his bones were crushed. Even his demon core was taken by Kong Shinmu. It was impossible for him to resist Kong Shinmu now. He knew his own strength. After all, his comrade, who was almost as strong as him, had been killed by Kong Shinmu's group. He couldn't take the risk. At this point, 2 of the 4 monstrous god clan geniuses had died. Only the striped tiger monstrous god clan genius, who had escaped death, and the black snake monstrous god clan genius, who had been guarding the exit of the passage and had flown into the space to kill Kong Shinmu. Wei Mingtian and Luo Zhao's expressions changed when they saw this. How could they have imagined that Kong Shinmu would be so ferocious? It was fine if his strength was explosive, but he was so ferocious when he fought. It was terrifying. Luo Zhao couldn't help but think that it was fortunate that he and Kong Shinmu were on the same side. Otherwise, it would be too frightening to face such an opponent. At this moment, Luo Zhao was still leading another disciple of the Starry Sky Storm Holy Land to stop Wei Mingtian. However, with the return of the other Sea God clan cultivator, they might not be able to stop Wei Mingtian. Therefore they retreated as they fought, planning to meet up with Kong Shinmu's group of 5. After Jiang Xinwu killed the second genius of the demon god clan, he took a closer look at the dead spirit fiendish ring floating beside him. He discovered that the color of the dead spirit fiendish ring had become more translucent. It was originally a ring formed from milky white demon flames. But now, the milky white color was even more transparent than before. Could it be that I have to kill enough opponents to make the dead spirit demonic fire ring completely transparent before it belongs to me? Kong Shinmu thought. According to the speed at which the necromancer fiery ring was turning transparent, it would take another 2 to 3 more opponents to make it completely transparent. Of course, this was just Kong Shinmu's conjecture and had yet to be verified. However, he still wanted to test it out. Anyway, there was nothing else to do. He could only kill more practitioners of other races. In any case, killing his opponents from the demon god race and the thousand-winged snake race was not a problem for Kong Shinmu. Of course, Kong Shinmu was more eager to kill the geniuses of the demon god tribe. Although the evil prince was not present, he had already killed 2 geniuses of the demon god tribe. It would be better to kill the next 2 as well. Otherwise, if he went to kill the thousand-winged snake race and the sea god race now, he would offend many people, and it would be very inconvenient. Since he had killed the demon gods, then he would kill all of them. Wind shadow flowing cloud flash. In the next moment, Kong Shinmu once again used the space dragon martial technique. His understanding of the void force far surpassed the practitioners present. Not only did he have Linghu Daier's understanding of the wind shadow flowing cloud flash, but he had also cultivated the void force inheritance. He could even condense the void god totem of the clear sky illusionary net. This was why he was stronger and more terrifying than the other practitioners. Of course, he could not condense the clear sky illusionary net totem to fight. After all, he represented the geniuses of the dragon god tribe. If he used the void force inheritance, it would be difficult to explain himself. Unless he could ensure that he could kill everyone present, Kong Shinmu would not use other inherited techniques. Although he could not use the void force inheritance, his understanding of the void force allowed Kong Shinmu to be more sensitive to the power of space. When he used dragon martial techniques like the wind shadow flowing cloud flash, his speed was faster, and he was even more invisible. Kong Shinmu brought 5 people with him and immediately burst forth with speed, blocking the escape path of the striped tiger demon god tribe genius. The 5 people surrounded him, and a violent attack directly erupted. Moreover, Kong Shinmu used the power of the wind shadow flowing cloud flash to block the other party's escape path. Kong Shinmu's understanding of the void force was stronger than the other parties, so the other party was destined to be controlled by Kong Shinmu. The striped tiger demon god tribe genius, who originally wanted to escape through space, suddenly stopped, as if he was forcibly blocked. There seemed to be a void barrier in front of him. The next moment, Kong Shinmu brought 4 people to surround him. All kinds of terrifying dragon martial techniques descended from all directions, and the striped tiger's eyes revealed a deep sense of despair. "Save me!" The striped tiger demon god tribe genius still had time to cry for help, but he was immediately drowned by all kinds of attacks. Kong Shinmu's wind snow dragon stone exploded again, and the terrifying power made the striped tiger demon god tribe genius unable to block it. Most of his strength was immediately devoured by the devouring power. In his incomparably weak state, he was directly crushed by Xiao Bai's 99 ice dragon pagodas into ice sculptures. At this moment, Luo Xiao flew over with his junior brother. When he saw this scene, he could not help but sigh. Kong Shinmu was too strong, and he had many tricks up his sleeves. He was very ruthless. Even now, Luo Xiao did not know what level Kong Shinmu's limits were. Although Luo Xiao already knew that Kong Shinmu was not very strong in terms of the dragon martial techniques in a head-on battle, and he could not even kill a striped tiger demon god tribe genius by himself, Kong Shinmu's tricks were too strange. No one knew what other tricks he had not used. "Brother Jiang, you have killed 3 demon god tribe geniuses in a row, and your body must be somewhat empty. Junior brother and I will protect you. Quickly recover." Luo Xiao flew over with his junior brother, but he did not get too close. Instead, he blocked them in front of the geniuses from the other races. There weren't many people left in the arena. There was 1 from the demon god tribe, 2 from the sea god tribe, including Wei Mengtian, and 3 from the thousand-winged snake tribe. The total number of people was no longer comparable to Kong Shinmu's group of 7 dragon martial artists. They already had 1 more than their opponents. In just a moment, Kong Shinmu had killed 3 demon god tribe geniuses. This shocked everyone. "All right, thank you, Brother Luo." Kong Shinmu did not stand on ceremony and immediately began to recover his strength. Of course, this was all an act. He also had Xiao Bai and the 3 Gu family juniors pretend to recover their strength. In fact, Kong Shinmu was full of energy. The energy he had devoured from the 2 striped tiger demon god tribe geniuses had all been transformed into his own strength. Moreover, he could secretly transfer his strength to his own people so that they could recover quickly. Chapter 47-22. At this moment, Kong Shinmu and the other 4 looked like they were resting and recovering their strength. They had just killed 3 demon god clan geniuses, so it was natural that they were exhausted. Luo Xiao and his junior brother stood in front of Kong Shinmu and the other 4 to help them block the remaining 6 demon god clan geniuses. At this moment, as Kong Shinmu had expected, the other party did not intend to give up this opportunity. "Go!" The remaining 3,000 winged snake clan geniuses, as well as Wei Mengtian and his underlings from the Sea God clan, had obviously communicated secretly and attacked Luo Xiao immediately. As for the remaining prodigy of the Black Snake Demon God clan, he seemed to be cooperating with them, but in reality, he was flying at the back and slowly hiding. This was the power of the Black Snake Demon God clan's bloodline. However, he was clearly retreating, and did not intend to go all out at this time. This was because 3 of his fellow geniuses had died. Compared to his 3 companions, there was nothing special about him. He had to be careful next. If Kong Shinmu could kill his 3 companions, he could also kill him easily. "They're coming, block them." Luo Xiao's face darkened. He knew that the most difficult moment was coming. He saw that Kong Shinmu and the other 4 were indeed exhausted. He had to give them some time to recover. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to win today. Especially, Luo Xiao saw the shadows of 6 hexagonal fiery crystals gradually appearing at the place where the 2 demon gods were killed. These 6 hexagonal fiery crystals were left behind by the 2 demon gods after they were killed. There was no way for them to bring the treasures back, but the remaining people could fight for the treasures. The outcome of this battle would have a great impact. The winner would be able to bring back double the number of hexagonal fiery crystals, which would increase the wealth of the entire Dragon Gods clan. One could imagine how useful these hexagonal fiery crystals were to supreme experts. If they brought back dozens of hexagonal fiery crystals, wouldn't it increase the strength of dozens of supreme divine dragon experts? Therefore, they could not be underestimated. Luo Xiao erupted. He was from the Starry Sky Sacred Ground and possessed the bloodline of the Starry Sky Tyrant Dragon. At this moment, the sky was filled with starlight, forming a starry screen in front of him. His junior brother also unleashed a kind of star elemental power to assist Luo Xiao in resisting the opponent's attack. The 3,000 winged snake experts and Wei Mingtian's junior brother had already launched their attacks. The terrifying power collided with the defense of Luo Xiao and his junior brother. It was like the most dazzling explosion, causing a large amount of power to explode into ripples that spread to the surroundings. If Luo Xiao had not controlled the direction, these attacks would have been enough to cause Kong Xinmu and his group. However, at this moment, Wei Mingtian, who was condensing his sea god totem, smiled and disappeared from the front. When he reappeared, he was already at the back, right beside Jiang Shenwu and the other four. Kong Xinmu's defense was too strong. As for the three Gu family juniors, they did not pose much of a threat. Kong Xinmu's defense was too strong. As for the three Gu family juniors, they were not much of a threat. As long as Xiaobai was killed, Kong Xinmu would be the only one left to deal with. Now that Kong Xinmu and his group were recovering their strength, they probably did not expect Wei Mingtian to launch a sneak attack like this. Even Luo Xiao could not stop him. However, they did not know that Kong Xinmu was smiling. When he saw Wei Mingtian appear, he did not show any fear. Instead, he looked as if everything was under his control. As expected, you have come to me. Xiaobai, kill. Without any superfluous words, Kong Xinmu and Xiaobai looked at each other and unleashed their most terrifying attacks at the fastest speed. The sea god totem behind Wei Mingtian had already stirred up horrifying waves. However, Xiaobai and Kong Xinmu had combined their powers and used the 9th stage Extreme Dragon Explosion and Ice Dragon Pagoda, suppressing mountains and rivers at the same time. It did not look like he had lost his strength and was recovering. This was simply full power, and both sides were in peak condition. Wei Mingtian was shocked. His expression changed and he retreated hurriedly with the sea god totem. The tsunami that he had created collided with Kong Xinmu's 9th stage Extreme Dragon Explosion and exploded with a terrifying momentum. Then, Xiaobai's 99 Ice Dragon Pagoda engulfed Wei Mingtian's sea god totem. Then, the sea god totem suppressed Wei Mingtian. The sea god totem on Wei Mingtian's body shone brightly. Endless power of the sea god tribe's inheritance erupted from the totem and surged outwards like a tsunami. The 99 Ice Dragon Pagoda crumbled one by one under the impact of the tsunami. However, the speed at which they crumbled was not fast. There were still dozens of Ice Dragon Pagodas that fell and smashed onto the image of the sea god totem, causing many cracks to appear on the entire sea god totem. Devour! Kong Xinmu's dark devouring power arrived at the right time and devoured the power of the sea god totem. The intensity of his devouring power was extremely high. The tsunami power that erupted from the sea god totem was completely devoured by the devouring power. Then, the devouring power enveloped the sea god totem and started to devour the sea god totem. What kind of power is this? Wei Mingtian had never seen such a devouring power. He released his sea god tribe's war weapon and the terrifying power created a ripple in the space. He planned to escape with Wei Mingtian. Unfortunately, the power of the space rippled and was devoured by the devouring power. He could not escape at all. If Kong Xinmu had used the 9th stage Extreme Dragon Explosion, Wei Mingtian would have been able to use some sea god tribe martial arts to defend himself. However, Kong Xinmu had directly used the devouring power. How could Wei Mingtian resist it? No matter what kind of power he used, it would be devoured. The sea god totem's image started to flicker as it was continuously devoured by the devouring power. Chapter 47-23. The upper half of the sea god's totem was riddled with holes by Kong Xinmu's devouring power. The lower half was frozen into an ice sculpture. Wei Mingtian was in despair. It seemed like he was going to die. Everyone was extremely shocked when they saw that half of the Sea God clan's totem shadow that Wei Mingtian had condensed had been devoured and the other half had been frozen into an ice sculpture. It was too terrifying. Were Kong Xinmu and Xiaobai really geniuses from the Dragon Martial Continent? Since when did the geniuses from the Dragon Martial Continent have such terrifying combat strength? Even the geniuses Yu Yaji, Emperor Shi, and the mystical dragon were not able to kill any famous foreign race geniuses in the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor. But now, Kong Xinmu and Xiaobai had joined forces and killed the genius of the Sea God clan, Wei Mingtian. Wei Mingtian was an existence who had explored many supreme ruins. Not only was he strong, he was also very experienced. If one were to ask who was the least likely to die in the exploration of the Supreme Ruins, it would undoubtedly be the geniuses of the 4 clans, Mr. Evil, Mighty Heaven, Princess Bai Lian, and Bai Feng. This was because they were the most experienced and knew what to do. But now, Wei Mengtian was fooled by Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai's weak appearance and fell into their trap. Who would have thought? Although Luo Xiao was under a lot of pressure, he relaxed a lot. Once Wei Mengtian died, the next opponents would be like chickens and dogs, and they would be able to kill all the geniuses from the other clans. Anyway, there were not many people left. However, Luo Xiao was still a little confused. Just now, he clearly sensed that Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai's auras were very weak. It seemed like they had used up most of their energy. Why were they suddenly full of vigor? Even if they had taken some recovery elixirs, it was impossible to recover so quickly. In order to recover their strength in this state, they would definitely need to take pills. Otherwise, they would need at least a day and a night to fully recover their strength. Even if they took recovery pills, they would need at least the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn to recover some of their battle strength. However, Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai were not affected by this common sense. It was because they had the ability to go against common sense that they were tricked and fell into the trap. Seeing that Mighty Heaven's sea god totem was in great danger, the disciple from the sea god tribe who was attacking Luo Xiao let out a sorrowful cry and immediately gave up on attacking Luo Xiao. Instead, he changed his direction and wanted to circle around to help Mighty Heaven. Unfortunately, Luo Xiao's junior brother immediately blocked him. Both sides engaged in a fierce battle, and the Sea God clan disciple was unable to take even half a step forward. Wei Mengtian was filled with grief and indignation. He could have attacked or retreated. He had the Sea God clan's warrior that could travel through the void, so he shouldn't have encountered such a crisis. However, Kong Xinmu had actually used a terrifying and strange method to completely devour the power of the Sea God clan's warrior that could travel through the void. This was too shocking. Wei Mengtian had never heard of anyone who had such a method. This Kong Xinmu was going against the natural order. This was only the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor, so it wouldn't affect the overall situation too much. However, once Kong Xinmu's cultivation completely rose, wouldn't it mean that there would be another demon in the Dragon God clan? That was a demon who could affect the overall situation. At least, he was a few levels higher than Mighty Heaven. However, Mighty Heaven was not in the mood to think about it. He had never expected that he would die in this supreme relic. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't escape from the siege of Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai. The lower body of his Sea God clan's totem had been suppressed by the Ice Dragon Pagoda and frozen into an ice sculpture, while his upper body was being devoured by the devouring power. At this time, he gritted his teeth. In order to save his life, he couldn't care less anymore. He removed the shadow of the Sea God totem as fast as he could and suddenly returned to his human form. Taking advantage of the fact that the powers of Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai hadn't converged, he fled far away immediately. After removing the shadow of the Sea God totem, he could only use less than 1/3 of his inherited power. However, this was his only chance to escape. It was a pity. The 3 juniors of the Gu family had already listened to Kong Xinmu's command and had been waiting at the side for a long time. When the 3 juniors of the Gu family saw Mighty Heaven fly out after removing the shadow of the Sea God totem, they immediately formed a formation and trapped Mighty Heaven in it. This was the inherited formation of the Gu family, and it was quite effective in trapping enemies. With the 3 of them forming a formation, Mighty Heaven couldn't break out of the restraints of the formation at all. Moreover, his power was constantly being lost in the formation. Damn it! Mighty Heaven wailed and condensed the shadow of the Sea God totem again in an attempt to break the formation by force. However, when the shadow of the Sea God totem was condensed again, it was still in the form of an ice sculpture, while the upper half was riddled with holes. The endless devouring power was rolling and surging, and he couldn't even use half of his power. Just as he was about to break the formation by force, Kong Xinmu's 9th stage ultimate dragon explosion had already descended. Previously, he had been using the devouring power. Now, the true killing move had descended. The power of the 9th stage ultimate dragon explosion completely shattered the Sea God totem. Wei Mengtian died completely in this attack. When the shadow of the Sea God totem collapsed completely, the arrogant genius of the shrimp tribe of the Sea God tribe finally died on the spot. The 6 hexagonal fire crystals on his body immediately appeared, but Kong Shinmu didn't have the time to collect them for the time being. He wasn't in a hurry to collect these hexagonal fire crystals. The urgent matter at hand was to kill all the remaining people in one fell swoop. After all the people of the other clans were killed, wouldn't the remaining hexagonal fire crystals be distributed by Kong Shinmu and the others? This was a great harvest. Kong Shinmu didn't hesitate at all. He looked at Luo Xiao, who was fighting the 3,000 winged snake tribe geniuses by himself. He didn't go over there for the time being. Instead, he turned to the remaining disciple of the sea god tribe. He executed the wind shadow flowing cloud flash and charged over with Xiao Bai. The sudden appearance of Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai made the disciple of the sea god tribe so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He wanted to escape, but he knew that he couldn't. The 99 ice dragon pagodas descended and suppressed him. 4 black dragon breaths exploded beside him with the most terrifying power. Combined with the attack of the disciple of the starry sky storm Holy Land, the disciple of the sea god tribe didn't last long before he died. The sea god totem shattered completely and exploded. The sea god tribe was completely eliminated. Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai looked at each other and looked at the situation around them. Suddenly, their expressions changed. Someone was probably trying to take the opportunity to escape. Chapter 47-24. The prodigy of the Black Snake Demon God clan was adept at concealment. At this moment, no one noticed him trying to escape. Fortunately, Kong Shinmu had fused with the Centipede Ink Beast's ability, so he easily discovered his tracks. Let's go! Kong Shinmu brought Xiao Bai with him. Without hesitation, the two of them shuttled toward the exit of the passageway and blocked it. At this moment, Kong Shinmu discovered that the necromancy demonic fire ring floating beside him had almost turned pure white. He was probably just short of killing one last person before it would become his. Therefore, his target was this prodigy of the Black Snake Demon God clan. As Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai blocked the exit, the prodigy of the Black Snake Demon God clan felt a chill in his heart and immediately stopped in his tracks. He was still concealing himself, but he didn't know that he had been exposed. He was in a state of complete concealment, which was his strongest talent. Logically speaking, cultivators of the same realm shouldn't be able to see him. Moreover, Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai were also heading straight for the exit. They didn't have any intention of targeting the prodigy of the Black Snake Demon God clan. Therefore, the prodigy of the Black Snake Demon God clan didn't know that Kong Shinmu had already discovered that he was trying to escape. Therefore, this fellow stopped near the exit of the passageway, intending to see what would happen next. This fellow was extremely confident in his concealment ability. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai didn't hesitate at all. They directly launched a storm of attacks at the place where he was hiding. Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai seemed to have an inexhaustible amount of energy. They continuously unleashed their strongest power and still looked like they were at their peak, without any signs of weakening. 99 ice dragon pagodas instantly descended and suppressed him. Then, 4 black dragon breaths exploded beside the prodigy of the Black Snake Demon God clan. Luo Xiao, his junior brother, and the 3 juniors of the Gu family were fighting against the 3 opponents of the 1,000-winged snake clan, and they had already gained the upper hand. Previously, Luo Xiao had a hard time resisting them. If he wasn't a 4th-class disciple, he would have been killed by the 3 people from the 1,000-winged snake clan. But now, he had turned the tables. As Kong Shinmu and Xiao Bai killed their opponents from the Sea God tribe and the Demon God tribe, Luo Xiao also obtained helpers. His junior brother was freed up, and with the help of the 3 juniors from the Gu family, they immediately turned around and suppressed the 3 geniuses from the 1,000-winged snake clan. The 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan were terrified, especially when they saw Jiang Shunwu and Whitey attacking the hidden genius of the Black Snake Monstrous God clan again. They felt a deep sense of fear. We admit defeat. They knew that they had lost the upper hand today. We will leave 1 hexagonal fiery crystal each, and we will leave the ruins. The 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan knew that the situation was not good, so they offered to hand over a portion of their loot to save their lives. Either leave all the crystals or die here, Luo Xiao said indifferently. Luo Xiao said lightly, not giving the other party a chance to bargain at all. The 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan were instantly enraged. Don't go too far. If you really force us, do you really think we don't have any trump cards? We just don't want to waste them. There was some degree of credibility to this statement. However, they were not much of a threat to Luo Xiao. Luo Xiao said calmly, "Leave all the crystals or I won't let you leave." There was no need to let them leave, and they would also expose what happened here. Therefore, since they had the ability to kill their opponents, why should they let them go? Luo Xiao had no intention of letting them go. At this time, his junior brother came to help. "Senior brother, why don't you ask each of them to hand over 2 crystals? It's not very possible for them to hand over all of them." "What you said makes some sense." Luo Xiao put on a look of consideration. The 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan finally heaved a sigh of relief, but they still wanted to argue. "We will leave 1 crystal each, and 1 more, for a total of 4 crystals. That should let us leave, right?" "That's too little. Leave 5 crystals, and we can barely let you leave," Luo Xiao said firmly. Both sides exchanged blows for 1 more hexagonal fiery crystal. However, at this time, they did not notice that Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai had already injured the Black Fei God Clan genius. Although the Black Fei God Clan genius was heavily injured, it would still take some time to kill him. Therefore, the 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan were not prepared. At this time, Kong Xinmu directly abandoned the Black Fei God Clan genius and used the wind shadow flowing sunset flash to shuttle over. Terrifying power began to erupt. At the same time, Luo Xiao and his junior brother didn't let go of this opportunity. The energy of the star element erupted right after, and it was like a star exploding. It brought along a terrifying and turbulent fluctuation of the star element, and it directly bombarded the 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged serpent clan. "You guys!" The geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan did not expect the other party to attack while they were having a good discussion. Most importantly, they had expected that Kong Xinmu would attack them after killing the last Fei God Clan genius. However, the Fei God Clan genius was not dead yet. He was only heavily injured. Yet, Kong Xinmu actually abandoned him. They did not grasp the timing well. Although they were prepared, they were still caught off guard. Terrifying energy instantly erupted, and the 3,000-winged snake clan geniuses were instantly injured. Fortunately, the 1,000-winged snake clan also cultivated body-tempering martial techniques. Their defensive abilities were relatively strong, and the scales on their bodies were very strong. "Devour, descend!" At this moment, Kong Xinmu directly erupted. After the 9th stage Extreme Dao Hui Dragon explosion, it was time for the original attack of the devouring power. The tyrannical and strange devouring power directly descended on the 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan. All of them had suffered heavy injuries earlier, and were unable to use their full strength to resist for a short period of time. Every single one of them could only display less than half of their strength. And how could this less than half of their strength withstand Jiang Shenwu's devouring? Kong Xinmu devoured the power at an extremely fast speed. In fact, in just an instant, the defensive power that they used was completely devoured by Kong Xinmu. Following that, Luo Xiao erupted with his strongest attack. At this moment, the dazzling stars flickered and condensed into rays of starlight that bombarded the 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan from all directions. The defensive power of the 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan had already been devoured by Kong Xinmu. Therefore, Luo Xiao erupted with the most exhilarating attack of his life. With a concentrated attack of starlight, he actually killed 3 geniuses of the 1,000-winged snake clan. Terrifying. Shocking. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.